Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Gained the Power of the Future Side, Part 1. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
A large being could be heard asking his little friend, "Do tell me, Muru, how fares the young boy?" This man, or more accurately, God, was a creature called Deus Ex Machina. He was a huge creature with a head that was actually his head, but one that looked skeletal. He was covered by a pretty thick cloak that made it difficult for anyone to see much of his body underneath it. A small girl named Muru was Machina's buddy, albeit it was more convenient to just call her Muru or Muru-chan. She has long lavender hair, dark skin, and sparkling purple eyes that gleam with a peculiar blend of mischievousness and innocence. At the moment, she was watching a figure on a screen in front of them while munching from a bowl of popcorn. "Well, I'd say he's doing all right. It's his birthday again, so maybe you should bring him here where it's safe. He still seems to think you're his imaginary friend. While cute, it would probably be better to set him straight sooner rather than later, master. After all, it's almost time for you to bestow upon him your gift. Then there's those girls." As he watched Naruto attempt to outpace a group of seemingly ordinary citizens with a wide variety of weapons, from pickaxes to shovels, Deus nodded. "Very well then. I do believe it's time he learns the truth. Not just about the two of us, but about his parents, what the village has been keeping from him, and about the dangers he will soon be faced with. Muru, be a dear and deal with that pesky mob while I bring young Naruto-kun here." Muru put her popcorn on the ground, saluted, and disappeared from her position. Deus stared at the popcorn dish for a moment after she left, as though he was thinking about something. A second later, he picked up a tiny amount, for a normal-sized creature anyhow, and threw some into his mouth. His eyes widened a little as he chewed and let his tongue taste the exquisite delicacy, then swallowed and laughed. "Such a fine snack. I'll have to instruct her to make me a bowl." The Konoha as he retreated against the alley's wall, an 8-year-old Naruto shuddered in terror. The mob had begun after him, and he had tried to escape them and hide, but he had reached a dead end and had nowhere to hide. Unfortunately, especially on his birthday, this was not out of the ordinary. A typical child's birthday would be celebrated, but Naruto was beaten and abandoned to perish nearly every year. This had been happening to him all the time since he was expelled from the orphanage when he was 4 years old, with the greatest beatings occurring on the day of his birth. Naruto fell to his knees and embraced himself tightly, now caught between the crowd of what he believed to be terrorists and the dead end he was at. "Please, don't. Please," he whimpered, closing his eyes. A man brandishing a pitchfork said, "You're turning to begging now, boy. Demons like you don't get to plead for mercy. Get him," as they started to close in on the frightened child. However, the sound of one of their own screams could be heard before they could move closer than a few steps in his direction. The mob spun around on their heels, staring in horror at their fallen colleague. Where his heart should have been, there was a large hole. The sight of a young girl, or at least what seemed like a young girl, standing atop his lifeless body caused them to shudder in terror. As she threw the man's heart up and down in her left hand, she wore a malicious grin. "Oh, and here I thought I could play a bit more. Too bad," she murmured, then clenched her fist tightly, crushing the heart and causing its blood to spill all over the place. "Now for you jerks." Shortly as the mob turned their backs on him, Naruto disappeared without anyone noticing. A little girl with pink eyes and pink hair tied up in a ponytail that reached her butt was also unseen by anyone. She watched everything that happened. The young-looking girl resolved that she would one day become powerful enough to inflict such horrors on herself and, more significantly, Naruto's foes after witnessing the havoc she was inflicting on the wretches who dared to harm her Naru-kun. Yuno Gasai was a young girl who attended the Shinobi Academy and was enrolled in Naruto's class. She would observe Naruto in class every day, during spars, and pretty much anything he did in class. Her primary emphasis was and will always be on her beloved Naruto-kun, even though she paid enough attention to the lessons to comprehend the content and even received excellent grades. She had even scared off young Hinata Hyuga from stalking her future boyfriend because of her infatuation, or rather what she would call love. Why did this little girl have such a strong crush on Naruto Uzumaki? He was a social misfit, just like her, for starters. She endured toxic abuse from her parents and was constantly alone. Despite her extreme depression and desire to simply pass away, she refrained from ending her own life. Then, while watching young Naruto Uzumaki, she came to the realization that he shared her loneliness. Both of them suffered from severe misunderstandings, And although Yuno was shunned due to her appearance and the gloomy vibe she exuded, Naruto was regarded as though he were the earth's trash. Nevertheless, he opted to act like a carefree child and continued to smile in spite of everything. She wished she had that kind of strength. She was more enamored with Naruto the more she observed him. Was being so infatuated with someone too young? Maybe, but she didn't give a damn. Yuno refused to allow anyone convince her that what she was experiencing was not love. She saw Naruto protect Hinata Hyuga from bullies, even though he was beaten senselessly for daring to transfer his taint to the young Hinata-sama by Hinata's bodyguard, a branch member of the Hyuga clan, after he had scared them away. Yuno felt a strong desire to kill that man, but she was aware that she lacked the resources and authority to do it. Shortly after this incident, she discovered that someone, Hinata Hyuga, had started stalking her beloved as well. Yuno's psyche was stirred by this, and she went on to traumatize poor Hinata in an attempt to get her to leave Naruto-kun alone. Following that incident, Hinata avoided Yuno and Naruto like the plague. Naturally, Naruto felt more alone than ever as a result of this specific issue, but Yuno was confident that he would eventually be content with her as his bride and they would have a happy life together, free from the violence directed at them. Now she could picture it. A contented family life with her beloved. They would have a large family and nurture their children to be terrifying creatures that would stalk Konoha village. No one would ever again attempt to harm any of them. Yuno couldn't help but smile as she saw the small girl finish killing the last of the group, a rather elderly woman with wrinkles on her cheeks and gray hair. That kind of strength is what I need. I could use it to murder my parents and escape their mistreatment. I may then spend time with Naru-kun. Nothing will separate us, Naru. The girl Yuno had just witnessed destroying the mob materialized in front of her, hovering upside down and looking into her eyes with interest as she turned to go. Well, hello there. You're that Yuno girl that's always following Naru around, aren't you? Tell me something. Why are you so interested in Naruto Uzumaki? Yuno's eyes widened, and she briefly looked over her shoulder before returning her attention to the girl. It's because he's like me. We're both lonely and have suffered far too much. I want to be with him forever. His own guardian angel. I see. Well then, I've got a proposition for ya. How's about you come with me to see Mr. Deus and we can go about giving you what you want. The power to protect little Naru. Yuno's eyes widened a bit further, then she nodded her head excitedly and smiled maliciously. That sounds great. First though, I'm hoping you can do something for me. You see. Naruto blinked a few times, trying to make sense of what had occurred to him. He was in the familiar chamber where Deus lived 1 minute, and the next he was on the verge of being lynched by the customary crowd. He noticed that Deus' eyes were fixed on the screen before him as he looked up at the enormous god. Therefore, Naruto also looked at the TV, wondering what he might be watching. Naruto became green as he processed what he was seeing, seeming as though he was about to throw up on the ground. He was able to suppress it, though, and eventually composed himself. Deus-sama. What's going on? He said, turning back to face Deus. The giant gave his comrade a sympathetic grin as he glanced down at him. I'm tired of seeing you hurt by these monsters in human skin. So, for the time being, I have brought you to me. I figured it's about time that you receive my gift, as well as some information that has been kept from you. I also wish to inform you that I am not your imaginary friend. I am a being that transcends humankind. I am, in fact, a god and I have taken a particular interest in you, my young friend. Naruto carefully nodded his head many times while blinking once more. Can't say I was expecting that. Sue, why get in contact with me at all? Surely I'm not that important. The deity laughed and replied, you're a very special boy, Naruto-kun. You see, I've had my eye on you from the moment you were born. Call it a whim, or curiosity, if you will. You've been touched by my brother, the Shinigami. You also have the Kyuubi no Yoko sealed within you and its power is slowly being absorbed by you and the seal that was placed upon you. Once enough time has passed, the Kyuubi will be no more and you will possess all of its power to wield as your own. Your parents were quite clever that way. In an attempt to understand all his best buddy had been saying, Naruto ruffled his hair and wrinkled his brows. However, everything Deus had just stated finally clicked and started to make sense. With his eyes widening in disbelief, he shouted, so that's why everyone hates me so much. They must think that I'm the Kyuubi. And my parents, if you're implying what I think you're implying, then the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, is my father. And he and my mom chose to seal that fuzzball into me? The hell were they thinking? Why me, damn it? Deus chuckled ruefully and raised a non-existent eyebrow. Additionally, he is treated as though he is a simpleton. People would realize how intelligent the youngster is if they would just give him a chance. Deus Ex Machina shrugged his shoulders and gave his companion a questioning glance before putting one finger on his head and giving it a light pat. Calm yourself, young one. I'll tell you everything you want to know and more. You might want to take a seat and enjoy some of this delectable snack while we talk. I have much to tell you before it's time to send you back home. If you can even call a cesspool of hate and perversity such a place. Naruto sat at the base of his throne and gazed up at his friend hopefully as he accepted the bowl of popcorn. Watch. I'll explain everything you see and hear. Everything will be made clear. Deus nodded his head once and gestured to the screen. Then, the events of Naruto's birth, up to the present, started to play on the screen, giving Naruto all the information he could possibly want about his life and more. A couple of them truly caught his attention, and, more significantly, his anger. The first occurred soon after his birth. He instantly identified the invader as Uchiha. Those bastards had already made multiple attempts on his life, so they were already on his shit list, but now he had even more reason to despise that damn clan. The second is when his foolish father, Minato, favored the village over his own son. He firmly thought he would be hailed as a hero in the community. He was a naive, blind fool for having such a foolish thought. After all, what had just transpired had left them in a state of grief, anger, and fear. What on earth did he anticipate happening? The third was the council meeting that took place following the conclusion of the attack. The third and recently reinstated Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, made the decision to announce to the council chambers that he was the Kyuubi no Yoko's new Jinchuriki. The civilian council, of course, demanded his swift execution. The clan leaders, with the exception of Fugaku Uchiha, disputed the idea and attempted to clarify that Naruto was only the jail or container that held the Kyuubi at bay. Because he was only a helpless child with no control over the situation. Despite this, the civilians claimed that Naruto was a monster and that his death was necessary for the good of the world. Although Hiruzen made it illegal for anybody to mention Naruto as the Jinchuriki, it was clear from the sparkle in that Danzo man's eye that he had other ideas. Naruto was introduced as the new Jinchuriki shortly after the conference, and he deceived many into thinking he was the Kyuubi in human form by using several deceptive tactics. But in contrast to what one might anticipate, Hiruzen Sarutobi decided to disregard this while grinning as he repeatedly witnessed Naruto being thrashed, degraded, and almost killed. His actions were very visible, and Naruto was not at all happy with them. The fact that clan leaders like Sume Inuzuka, Inuichi Yamanaka, and even Shikaku Nara approached the third Hokage and expressed their desire to adopt young Naruto into their clans and provide him with a happy home with their families was another sight that made him frown. Hiruzen, however, rejected each of them, claiming that no clan should be granted such authority. Naruto realized that Hiruzen was just spewing nonsense after everything he had witnessed, despite his claims that he wanted Naruto to lead a regular life. Hiruzen would see him in the attacks through his crystal ball, and Naruto would only send his Anbu to save him once the mob had begun beating the demon boy. He was, after all, attempting to coerce Naruto into becoming a devoted weapon for both himself and the town. Assume the persona of the loving grandfather and influence the youngster to virtually worship him in the Hokage position. Give him the delusion that he would become Hokage and win the admiration of the people, even though he never intended to allow Naruto to do so. Naruto understood that Hiruzen had been aware of the truth all along and that the old jerk had no intention of giving Naruto his inheritance. The small lad realized he would have to steal it all from beneath Hiruzen's nose if he wanted to obtain such a thing. He couldn't have that, after all, and facing the old bastard would only cause more mayhem. Naruto didn't really notice anything noteworthy other from that. He looked up at Deus after it was all over and remarked, "I'm going to need some help." Deus waved his hand and the screen vanished as he nodded his head in approval. He turned to face his little friend and said, "I won't let you do this alone, Naruto-kun. No, I'll be giving you some help. Muru-chan will deal with the old man and get you what belongs to you. I have a different plan for you to carry out." Naruto blinked at this, shoving some popcorn into his mouth without thinking and remarking absently on how delicious it was. "What did you have in mind, Deus-sama? And are you sure Muru-chan can handle that?" he queried out loud after a little pause. Laughing at this, Deus patted Naruto's reply, "You remember the scene I allowed you to see before we began our conversation? That was Muru's handiwork. She can get you your inheritance, I assure you of that. No, I have something different I want you to do for me. I'm going to bestow upon you a gift, the gift of future sight. From now on, you will be able to predict the future. Images will flash before your eyes, showing you everything you could ever need to know about what lies in store. You'll see things in your immediate future, and sometimes you'll see things that will take place in the distant future. They'll come to you in your mind's eye, whether you're asleep or awake. It will not affect your vision of the here and now, do not worry. I also plan to bestow similar gifts to a few younglings around you. You will meet them in time, and I hope that you will become dear friends with each of them. Perhaps you'll even become something more given time. The insinuation made Naruto flush, but he immediately shook it off. Are you sure about this? I mean, what if it all backfires and things go bad? He said, looking up into Deus' eyes instead. Continuing to chuckle, Deus turned to the young man and replied, do not worry. You will be under our protection. Should that old fool or anyone else try anything, they will be dealt with. Just to be safe, I'll ensure that Muru stays with you as much as possible. She is more than strong enough to keep you and your companions safe from harm. Though, I might just have to send her to deal with that crippled fool Danzo Shimura. He has plans for you that are not the pleasant kind. I refuse to let him and his soldiers harm you in any way. After giving a grateful nod, the young blonde suddenly had an idea and raised her gaze once more to Deus's eyes. Deus-sama, is there any way you and Muru-chan can train me so I'm prepared for anything that might happen? The powerful god glanced down at Naruto and put a finger to his forehead after briefly scratching his bony chin. Before giving the little child part of his strength, he cautioned, this may hurt a bit. Naruto let out a cry of pain as he did this, feeling as though his entire body was on fire. Naruto fell to his knees and began to gasp for air when it was finally over. What the hell was that, Datbeo? He said, turning back to face Deus. Smiling at the child, Deus said, I just bequeathed unto you some of my power. Muru-chan will train you in the usage of such a thing, and I will always be available to give you some pointers should you need any. And, just as I promised, I have given you the ability of future sight. Use it well and keep yourself safe. Naruto smiled brightly at Deus Ex Machina and nodded in agreement, saying, thanks Deus-sama. I promise I won't let you down. I believe in you, young Naruto-kun. I'm going to send you back now, as that old fool will be coming soon to investigate what happened. Do be careful. Before being expelled from Deus' realm, Naruto gave a nod. He chose to watch what would happen next and returned his attention to the TV. But he was also intrigued by something, so he made a second screen that revealed to him what Muru was doing. As he watched Muru murder Yuno Gasai's parents, he murmured to himself, how curious, she will prove to be quite useful for young Naruto-kun. I will have to speak with her as well. The Konoha a barrage of pictures greeted Naruto as he returned in the alley. His ability to glimpse so many various possibilities let him know right away that this might be both a boon and a bane. But instead of letting fate dictate his fate, he decided to see the positive side and believed that he could use this ability to mold the future the way he desired. Hiruzen reappeared in the alley shortly afterward, accompanied by a small group of Anbu. Naruto frowned briefly before he began to smile once again as he looked into the elderly man's eyes. Hello Hokage-sama. It's about time you showed up. Do tell me, what kept you this time? Paperwork? Pure laziness? Or was it perhaps something else? I'm all ears. Hiruzen scowled at Naruto's abrupt change in attitude and attempted to deduce what might have gone wrong this time. After taking a quick look at all the corpses strewn across the alleyway, he quickly returned his focus to Naruto. Did you do this, Naruto-kun? I seem to have my own guardian angel. Whoever it was, this angel of mine protected me from these jerks. Seems like this person's doing a better job than you ever did, sneered Naruto, waving his hand dismissively. With a faint scowl, Hiruzen remarked, be that as it may, the people will demand answers for what happened here. I can't protect you should they decide to punish you for this. TCH. Naruto laughed again and said, if Sasuke was behind this, you'd give him special treatment and brush this incident under the rug. Face it Hokage-sama, you have no intention of looking out for my best interests. Now, if that's all, I think I'd very much like to return home and get some rest. Do take care, old man. The elderly Hokage put a firm hand on Naruto's shoulder as he advanced on him, saying, you've done a bad thing today, Naruto-kun. It is well within the council's right to punish you for what you've done. Self-defense isn't a crime, the last time I checked. You're just going to spin this in a way that paints me in a bad light and leave me at their mercy. Don't worry, I'll make sure they get the message loud and clear. Naruto said, looking up into Hiruzen's eyes. He then shrugged off the Hokage's hand and left the old man to scowl after him. I don't like the alteration that has occurred. Angrily, Hiruzen thought to himself. Anbu Cat shook her head and scowled behind her mask before vanishing from view and trailing little Naruto. The female Anbu was well gone by the time he realized she was gone. Oh no, my scheme is failing. I didn't think you would fight back like this. The Yuno gazed at the corpses of her parents and grinned savagely. Even though she couldn't kill them herself, she was still quite happy with the turnout because she had wanted to do this for a very long time. Thank you, Muru-san. Can you please train me so I can stand beside Naru-kun and protect him from harm now? She said, bowing her head as she looked at the girl known as Muru. For a few period, as though thinking, Muru tapped a finger to her chin. She put a hand on Yuno's shoulder and chuckled a little after they had been silent for a while. The bodies of Yuno's parents were left to decay in the sanctuary of their house while she disappeared silently with the young woman with the pink hair. They glanced up at the monster in front of them when they reemerged in a room that was strange to Yuno at least. As Yuno's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets and her mouth gaped in disbelief, Muru saluted Deus and said, "Mission successful. And I've even brought a friend to see you. Meet Yuno Gasai." Looking down at the little girl, Deus said, "Welcome Yuno Gasai. It is a pleasure to finally meet you. The two of us have much to discuss. Before we begin though, I must warn you that things will never be the same should you accept my gifts. You may feel some pain should you accept, but I guarantee that everything will change for the better. I understand you have deep feelings for one Naruto Uzumaki. You want to protect him, and I have the power to grant your wish." Yuno smiled at him and replied, "I'll take whatever power and training you can give me, sir. Naruto-kun is mine and I'll keep him safe from anything and everything that might try to hurt him, including that Hokage of the village. I know he's trying to manipulate my darling, and I plan to hurt him for it. So I'll take whatever power you can give me if it means I can keep him safe." "Good. And you may call me Deus Ex Machina, or Deus for short. You see, I am one of the many gods of this world and I've taken a special interest in young Uzumaki-kun. I'm entrusting you with my power so you may keep him safe. If you two end up in a relationship together, then all the better. He needs to feel what actual love is like, and I am looking forward to the day you get together. Make him happy. I promise I'll do whatever it takes to keep my darling safe from harm. Nobody will ever hurt him again. If they try," Yuno stated, nodding her head once in approval of this. At this point, she started to laugh uncontrollably as she pictured all the ways she would completely annihilate her future husband's numerous adversaries. Deus gave Yuno Gasai the power she would need to protect her beloved from harm after he quietly laughed and put a finger on her head. "This may hurt a bit, but it will be worth it in the end. You will protect Naruto-kun from the shadows, if need be. Muru will train you in the use of your new abilities, and I will always be here to provide advice if you so wish it. I have promised the same thing to young Naruto-kun. Now, be still." After she settled down and began breathing normally once more, Deus nodded his head and said, "Just as with Naruto-kun, I have given you some of my power and abilities. I have also given you the gift of future sight. From now on, you will see the future that awaits your beloved Naruto-kun. Should he be in danger, you will be able to see it ahead of time and work to circumvent such an instance. From now on, you are a protector and I expect you to look out for him as a friend and loved one. Take care of him and try to befriend him before another girl swoops in and tries to steal him from you. Do you understand?" Yuno grinned broadly upon realizing that she was now intimately attached to her beloved. Yuno gazed up into Deus's eyes and then gave him a sadistic smile after nodding in agreement. "No one will take him from me. I've already chased that Hyuga skank off, and I refuse to let anyone else get close to him like that. He is mine." Softly chuckling, Deus remarked, "Good girl. Muru-chan, return Yuno-chan to Konoha and then bring me the other two. I will give them the power and abilities to help Naruto-kun in the future." The little girl gave him a nod and a salute, and then she and Yuno vanished. She came back a few minutes later with two more females, and Deus smiled down at them and started to explain why they had been brought before him. Muru thought, "Naruto-kun, your life is about to get a lot more interesting," and laughed to herself as her master did this. The Hokage's office the following day, Hiruzen looked into his crystal ball and scowled. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to get the darn thing to show him Naruto and his activities. It was just a gray cloud. A small girl jumped up on his desk and looked down at him, startling him as he considered what this might mean. "How did you get in here? And for that matter, who are you?" he asked, scowling briefly as he looked up into the girl's eyes. The girl, Muru, reached down and prodded the crystal ball with a sly smile. To Hiruzen Sarutobi's astonishment and surprise, the item broke into almost 100 pieces as soon as she did. The third Hokage looked into the girl's eyes, ready to strike out, but something appeared to stop him. He noticed that he was confined to his chair by golden chains that had been wrapped around his torso. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Do you realize what you're doing? What you've done?" he said, looking into the girl's eyes once more. At this moment, Hiruzen realized with horror that his Anbu were no longer there. He couldn't feel them in the room, and they weren't reacting to this danger at all. The fact that no one outside his office could hear him made him even more terrified. He looked at the young girl with wide eyes and then said, "You're the one who killed the villagers yesterday." "Got it in one, old man. The name's Muru, or Muru-chan for short. You've been a very naughty boy, Hiruzen Sarutobi. You and that Danzo guy you're friends with. You're both bad men. For shame, old man." She laughed and shook her head. "Release me this instant. If you don't, I'll have you declared an enemy of Konoha and you will be dealt with accordingly," Hiruzen yelled furiously. "I don't think you're in any position to do anything, Hiruzen Sarutobi. No, you're going to sit right there and listen to me. You see, I've taken an interest in little Naruto and I think it's high time he got what was his. Something you've kept from him, all because you're a greedy little man. You can't figure out how to get your hands on his parents' belongings, and you've kept his inheritance from his parents from Naruto-kun. You desire what is his by right. Well, now I'm here to take from you what belongs to little Naru and you can't do a thing about it. And should you try to act against him in any way, we'll know. You won't like the consequences, Hiruzen. You can easily be replaced by someone more cooperative. Someone that will look out for Naruto's best interests, whereas you have most certainly not. Naruto-kun is under our protection now, so do be a good boy and leave him alone from now on. Nod your head if you understand." Muru looked at her husband. Hiruzen frowned at her and opened his mouth to speak, but he was hit in the face, losing many teeth and caused him to wince from the extreme pain he was now experiencing. The girl put 2 fingers to his forehead and said softly, "Resistance is futile, old man. I can and will replace you if you don't cooperate." He was about to look at her again. Hiruzen carefully nodded his head to demonstrate that he understood her demands and threat, even as he felt his body start to perspire. Muru clapped her hands and burst out laughing, saying, "Good boy. See, you can learn if you really try, and they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Now, I'm going to release you and you're going to give me everything that's owed to Naruto Uzumaki. Try to resist and you won't like what happens to you. There's plenty of ways I can force you to cooperate, not the least of which is crippling you from the waist on down. Or perhaps you'd like to wear adult diapers for the rest of your miserable existence. Decisions. The old Hokage saw her let go of him, and although he wanted to tear her to pieces, he knew he probably wouldn't prevail in a direct battle with her. Following his gut on this one, he let out a deep sigh and went ahead to gather Naruto's keys, scrolls, and other belongings, setting them on his desk. "There. Now be gone." Muru scowled at Hiruzen and gave him the middle and index fingers of her right hand before exclaiming, "Ka pow." The Hokage then screamed in excruciating pain as a hole began to form in his leg. "I thought I told you to hand over everything. I know for a fact that you're still trying to keep things from him and me. Now, be a dear and gather the rest of what belongs to him or I'll have to do worse to make you cooperate." He scowled at the young girl, got up slowly, and started to limp toward Minato's photo. He then took it off and collected the remnants of Naruto's inheritance. He slammed it onto his desk, sank back in his chair, and gave Muru a fierce look. "Happy now?" Muru nodded her head and gave him a menacing smile. She pointed her fingers at his shoulder this time and said, "Bang," as she saw a hole form in his shoulder, causing him to scream again. "Very. See how much easier it is to just cooperate with me when I demand something from you. But I can tell you still don't quite understand. And now I'm good. Farewell, you naughty old man." As things appeared to return to normal, Hiruzen felt tears stinging at his eyes. He could hear his secretary working and singing a song to herself. His Anbu had gone back to their places, and everything appeared to be okay once more. The sole issue, he was still in excruciating pain from the wounds the girl had caused him, and they were still leaking. The Anbu came before him and inquired about their leader's whereabouts as soon as they saw the condition he was in. He only insisted on being sent to the hospital. In order to bring him the medical assistance he so sorely needed, the Anbu followed their leader's instructions and vanished with him, even though they wondered what might have occurred. "Naruto, damn you. I am aware that you are somewhat to blame." The academy. As Naruto walked inside the classroom, he couldn't help but smile. His newfound capacity to see into the future had already been quite helpful. In addition to avoiding being plowed over by a rogue wagon load of cabbages, he had also avoided encountering a bunch of ninja who were out to get him. And now here he was. climbing the stairs to sit behind Yuno Gasai, that weird female, and Hinata. His future sight alerted him as he ascended the stairs that one of his regular bullies was trying to trip him. However, before he could do action, Yuno came up to him, drew a kunai she kept concealed on her person, and repeatedly stabbed the lad in the leg. "Leave him alone or I'll do even worse to you." Most, if not all, of the other students were appalled. The one girl who wasn't appalled caught Naruto's attention, and he saw that she was grinning cruelly. "Her name is Tsubaki Kasagano, I believe. Why does she appear so joyful about this?" Tsubaki was a stunning young lady whose dark blue hair reached almost to her legs and fell down her back. He could see that her other visible eye was crimson, but her right eye was likewise hidden by her hair. She was really pretty, he had to concede to himself. Nevertheless, Tsubaki turned to face him and gave him a modest wave while grinning, as though she was aware that he was observing her. Naruto turned back to Yuno and waved back, blushing a little. He asked doubtfully, Yuno-san? It's okay now. Thank you. Maybe we should get him some help." Yuno turned a deep scarlet and met his eyes as it dawned on her that the person she loved was speaking to her. Shaking her head, she blushed even more and stammered, "It's fine, Naruto-kun. And he doesn't need the help, he tried to hurt you." Naruto frowned a little as he examined the boy's leg and understood that he might not live if he didn't receive medical help right now. However, Iruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei both entered the room and froze in terror at what they saw before he could speak or do any action. Iruka yelled angrily, "Naruto, what the hell did you do? Why do you immediately assume it was Naruto-kun who did that to him? If I were you, I wouldn't question it and I'd get that foolish boy to the hospital before he bleeds to death," Tsubaki stated, turning to smile at Yuno and Naruto before they could respond. Iruka sighed and said, "You're right. Naruto, Yuno, take your seats. Mizuki, I'll leave it to you to start their lessons properly. I'll take Kiro to the hospital and be back as soon as I can." Both Iruka and Mizuki scowled up at the girl. After giving each other a shrug, Naruto and Yuno sat down next to Hinata, who was currently feeling very anxious and appalled. After all, Yuno's recent act of cruelty was unlike anything she had ever seen. Mizuki spoke out and gave Naruto Uzumaki a vile glare before Naruto could even address the two girls on either side of him. "We'll be having words about this later, Naruto Uzumaki. You're in big trouble for what you've done. Stop assuming Naruto-kun did it. That boy deserved what he got. He tried to hurt my Naru-kun again," Yuno remarked, giving Mizuki a vile glance. As they glanced between Yuno and Naruto, who was flushed from the words of his classmate, Mizuki wasn't the only one with a raised eyebrow. When Yuno held out her bloodied kunai and gave Mizuki a menacing grin, it became worse. I see. We're going to need to talk to your parents about this, Yuno-chan. And don't go thinking you're off the hook, Naruto." When Tsubaki and Yuno understood Mizuki was only out to get Naruto and screw everything else, they both glared at him. "He has to die." They shared a common thought. Tsubaki and Yuno peered into each other's eyes and slowly nodded in acceptance of each other, almost as if they realized what they were thinking. For the time being, however, they would deal with each other after dealing with Mizuki. A chilly chill went through Naruto's body, and he glanced at Yuno and then at Tsubaki, realizing that he was in the midst of a territorial dispute between the two of them. "I don't see why you feel the need to punish me when I did nothing wrong. Unless you're just like all the other bigots out there that have some kind of problem with me. Do tell me, Mizuki-sensei, just what is your problem with me?" he continued, choosing to ignore it and looking into Mizuki's eyes. Mizuki frowned as he looked into Naruto's eyes and opened his mouth to speak, but the smirk on Naruto's face and the knowing expression in his eyes made him feel worse. He is aware. Mizuki became aware. Oh no, if he is aware, then. A sequence of pictures flashed across Naruto's consciousness in the meantime, as if a video was playing that only he could see. He witnessed Mizuki trying to deceive him into taking a valuable item in this video. He witnessed Iruka trying to undermine him in a number of ways and Mizuki undermining the examinations he would take in the academy. Even worse, he witnessed how he would be held solely responsible for the item's theft, and people would start demanding that he be put to death for stealing something so valuable. He shook his head, closed his eyes, and scowled at this. "I refuse to bear the blame for you jerks," angrily, he thought. Yuno saw Naruto's dissatisfaction and scowled. Gaining confidence, she extended her hand to his left and softly grasped it in hers, squeezing it lightly. She smiled sweetly at him and whispered, "Everything will be okay, sweetheart. I promise," as he gazed into her eyes. Naruto blushed and opened his mouth to ask her a question, but he stopped when he heard Iruka's voice. When he returned to the room, the scarred teacher stated, "Pay attention, Naruto. You're still in trouble for what you did. Once school is done with for the day, I'm taking you straight to the Hokage so he can punish you accordingly." "I didn't fucking do anything. He tried to trip me, but I didn't do a damn thing to him," Naruto yelled, clenching his fists in front of him. Before he took his place at the front of the classroom next to Mizuki, Iruka yelled, "Don't feed me those lies, Naruto. Now, shut up and pay attention. You're lucky I don't kick you out of class for being a nuisance." Naruto stood up from his chair and walked to the door without a word. He looked up into Mizuki's eyes as he felt a touch on his shoulder. "Release me, you bastard." Mizuki scowled at the youngster, tightened his hold on his shoulder, and stated, "That's it. You're coming with me. Hokage-sama will deal with you for your behavior." He then used a body flicker technique to vanish with Naruto. Both Yuno and Tsubaki gave this a furious glare before turning to look at Iruka. "What the hell is your problem? Naruto-kun didn't do a damn thing to that boy and you insist on punishing him for it?" Tsubaki yelled with rage. Iruka dismissed her worry with a sneer. Before starting the class's lesson for the day, he told everyone to sit down, stop talking, and pay attention. "That boy has done nothing but cause trouble from the moment he was born. It's about time he got what was coming to him." After exchanging another look, Yuno and Tsubaki nodded together. They will all receive their just desserts. Naruto, after pushing Mizuki away from him, Naruto slammed his fist into the elder man's crotch and glared into his eyes. "Damn you, Mizuki-teme. How many times do I have to repeat that I didn't fucking do anything before you assholes listen to me?" Hiruzen coughed to draw Naruto's attention as Mizuki fell to the ground, grasping his genitalia. The young kid turned to face the Hokage, who gestured for him to sit down. "Tell me, Naruto-kun, what have you been accused of doing this time?" Naruto sat down and looked into the Hokage's eyes as calmly as he could. "Iruka-teme and Mizuki-teme seem to think I assaulted Kiro. I never even touched him. Yes, he tried to trip me so I'd fall and hurt myself, but I didn't do anything to him. Those two are bigots and hate me because of what's sealed inside of me. And yes, old man, I know about the Kyuubi. Thanks a lot for not telling me. I truly appreciate it." Sarcastically, Naruto concluded. Exasperated, Hiruzen shook his head and moaned. "I'll admit that I should have told you about that and your parents before, but you have to understand." Naruto shook his head and held up a hand before Hiruzen could continue. I'm not falling for your shit anymore, old man. You were only looking out for yourself and the village. You don't give a shit about me. And before you ask me who's really responsible for the attack on Kiro, I'm not going to tell you. If you really want to know, then ask the other students in the class. I'm sure at least one of them will tell you the truth behind the attack. Now, if that's all, I'm going to go back home. I can't deal with those assholes you put in charge of my class anymore. I'll just have to go to the library and study or something, because I'm obviously not welcome in the academy." Hiruzen shook his head and let out another deep sigh, frowning slightly at this. "For what it's worth, I apologize for their behavior in regards to you and your status. Tell me, have you moved into your parents' home yet?" While scowling at Hiruzen, Naruto nodded his head slowly. "Yes, I have. Why?" Looking at the youngster with a smile, Hiruzen said, "They had a veritable library full of various kinds of books and scrolls. If the librarian refuses to let you in, then have a look at your parents' library. You'll find that you can learn far more from their books than you would in a classroom. As for Iruka and Mizuki, I will deal with them personally. Go on and return home, Naruto-kun. I do hope you'll come back to visit sometime soon." After mocking this idea, Naruto stood up and walked out of the Hokage's office. Hiruzen frowned and scratched the bridge of his nose in annoyance when he left. "Oh no, the brat. It annoys me to have to be nice to him after everything I've been through." Looking at Mizuki, who was gradually getting up, Hiruzen replied, "Don't think I haven't got you figured out, Mizuki. You're lucky I don't just send you to Ibiki to extract all the information you have to offer before having you killed. If you know what's good for you, you'll toe the line and treat that boy with respect. If I hear anything more about you trying to sabotage his education, I'll have you publicly executed. Do you understand me? You really expect me to treat that thing with respect? Don't you remember what that monster has done?" said the silver-haired Chunin, frowning at this. With a disappointed sigh, Hiruzen shook his head. "Very well. Anbu, take this idiot to Ibiki and tell him to have some fun with him." As the Anbu seized him and disappeared with him, Mizuki's eyes dilated in shock and he screamed in anger. After he left, Hiruzen repeatedly slammed his head against his desk before moaning and murmuring, "My job just can't be easy, can it?" Hiruzen glared at Iruka and asked, You do realize that Naruto-kun had nothing to do with that attack, don't you? Hiruzen had dispatched his Anbu to collect Iruka for him as soon as the day's classes ended. The Hokage he had vowed to obey was now lecturing him. He was standing over Kiro. It was obviously him responsible for the attack, Iruka stated with a frown. With a disappointed sigh, Hiruzen shook his head. He reached up, took off his hat, and started using his right hand to rub the bridge of his nose. Because of his injury, he had been told not to move his left arm. In addition, his leg injury required him to utilize a wheelchair or crutches for the time being. But just now, that is neither here nor there. No, handling Iruka properly was what mattered at this particular moment. Tell me, Iruka, was there anyone else around at the time? And will anyone corroborate your story? Asked the Hokage. At this, the scarred Shunin shook his head and scoffed. It was obviously Naruto's doing. I don't see why you're trying to defend him. That boy is a monster. Hiruzen was frowning now, glaring at Iruka so hard that he froze, cold sweat running down the back of his neck. Was there anyone else there? Yes or no, Iruka? Iruka scowled briefly as he attempted to recall that instance. Maybe. I was focused on Kiro's injuries at the time. Maybe one of the students could answer that question for you? As far as I'm concerned, however, Naruto is at fault. Kiro didn't do anything to warrant such an attack on his person. With a disappointed sigh, the third Hokage shook his head. You're lucky I'm willing to let you continue teaching that class with how you discriminate against the boy. I'm giving you one more chance, Iruka. Treat each of your students equally, don't play favorites and don't try to hold one of your students back, or else you won't like what I do to you. Iruka scowled at this and opened his mouth to object, but he was startled when Hiruzen slammed his fist down on his desk. Do you understand me, Iruka? From now on you treat that boy with the respect he deserves or I'll throw you in prison and conveniently lose the key. Iruka let out a deep sigh, sagged slightly, and slowly bowed his head. I will try, Hokage-sama. That boy is such a troublemaker though, and doesn't he need to be punished for what he did to Kiro? The third massaged the bridge of his nose and sighed. You didn't see the attack happen, so you don't have any proof that Naruto's behind the attack. Besides that, there's certain circumstances that prevent me from acting out against Naruto in any way. It's best just to leave him be. And if you don't shape up and start treating him fairly, you're not going to like what happens. I see. My apologies then, Hokage-sama. Though I'm curious, what exactly are these circumstances you mentioned? Iruka asked. Irritated with his subordinate, Hiruzen emphasized, you don't need to know. Iruka turned and walked out of the Hokage's office without saying anything more. Now get out of my office. I'm tired of dealing with you. When Hiruzen was by himself in his office, he turned and gave the Minato portrait hanging on the wall a fierce look. Why the hell do you have to die and leave me with this mess? You sentimental, naive fool of a boy. Iruka did not realize that two sets of eyes were watching him every step of the way as he made his way through the streets of Konoha to buy dinner before returning home. Instead, while he went about his job, he hummed a lively little song to himself. After a while, after Iruka had bought his evening meal and started walking home, he was taken by surprise when he suddenly experienced a strong ache in his ankles, which led him to trip and drop his meal. Even worse, he could not get to his feet, no matter how hard he tried. He turned to look at his feet and was appalled to discover that they were no longer joined to his legs. Iruka started to scream in agony and horror, but a tiny hand covered his mouth and stopped him. Tisk tisk, Iruka-sensei. Picking on poor Naruto-kun just because he's different. You should have been a better teacher. Now you die for what you've done. A girl's voice was heard saying. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to identify the voice, even though he swore he recognized it. He felt a sharp object sever the back of his knees before he could comprehend what was happening. He wanted to scream and whimper pitifully, but he felt a spherical object thrust into his mouth and a sharp object dig into his neck, both of which muffled his voice. Someone, I need help, please. Poor, stupid Iruka-sensei. Such a shame. You might have been a good teacher if you hadn't singled out Naruto-kun the way you did. Because of your bigotry, you need to die. Another girl's voice can be heard saying. He was unable to identify his assailants, but he could infer from their sounds that they were definitely young people, possibly even pupils in his class. He felt two sharp blades slice his eyeballs before they were torn from his head before he could think about it any longer. He was crying bloody tears now, and he kept pleading with himself for help. Unfortunately, no one would discover him until it was too late to save his useless hide. Both girls scratched into his body for a while, leaving different kinds of messages for whoever found him. They intended to convey to all of Naruto's detractors that any kind of attack on him would result in severe consequences. Iruka was a bloody mess by the time they were finished, and it was clear that he would never be the same. But instead of leaving him alive, one of the females cruelly ended his life by severing his head from his body. After he passed away, the girls just stared at each other, their eyes turning from pink to red. The first girl was heard stating, "Tsubaki-san. Thank you for your assistance." This one clearly belonged to Yuno Gasai, and she was grinning wickedly. "'Twas a pleasure. Nobody will hurt Naru-kun ever again. Is it safe to assume you've met with Deus-sama as well?" remarked Tsubaki, the second female, with a somewhat derisive bow. Yuno raised an inquisitive eyebrow and then nodded. "You as well then?" The girl with the crimson eyes nodded and grinned. "But of course. I propose a truce between the two of us. Or rather, I'd like to be friends. It's obvious that Deus wants us to support our Naru-kun and potentially become something more with him. So, if you truly feel the same for Naruto-kun, then let us pursue him together. He will be ours. We'll keep all other tramps away from him. Naru-kun is ours." After scowling for a while, Yuno sighed and grudgingly bowed her head. "Deal. I don't like it, but I understand Deus-sama's wishes for us to be there for Naru-kun." Before grabbing Yuno's hand and running away from the Chunin, Tsubaki said, "If it helps, there is only one other like us in the village. The three of us will keep him safe and show him the love he deserves. Anyways, we need to leave before we get caught. There's 3 Chunin near our position, so we have to move now." After blinking a few times, Yuno turned to look at Iruka's body over her shoulder. "How could you know that?" she said, turning back to face Tsubaki. The adorable young girl with the crimson eyes tapped her forehead and grinned. "Deus-sama blessed me with a gift as well. I can see through the eyes of everyone in the village if I so wish it. I can only see through a few people's eyes at a time, but it certainly makes it easy to deal with any problems coming or rather our way. I'm going to use this power to protect Naru-kun. And you as well, if you agree to become a sister wife for Naru-kun." With a sigh, the girl with the pink hair nodded her head in agreement. In a low voice, she responded, "Sure. As long as Naru-kun will be happy in the end." At this moment, they heard a disturbance emanating from the alley they had abandoned. The 2 girls giggled maliciously to themselves as they walked quietly away from the scene. "You won't have to worry about anything anymore, Naru-kun. Let your lovely brides take care of everything." The following day, academy. With a groan, Naruto walked into the classroom, his head hung glumly. He didn't get much sleep because yesterday had been difficult. He went inside his parents' library to learn as much as he could because he was having trouble sleeping. He thought he had nothing better to do, especially if he couldn't sleep, even though reading was kind of boring. A technique he had glimpsed while perusing their assortment of jutsu scrolls was one of the things he discovered that delighted him. It was none other than the shadow clone technique that piqued his curiosity. He was resolved to put the technique into practice as soon as he had the opportunity, even though it was a little early to start studying it. The standard clone technique was, after all, utter nonsense. Given that the Kyuubi's chakra was being added to his own, his enormous chakra reserves prevented him from ever doing it. He couldn't squat if he could control his chakra in any way. He walked slowly up the stairs, yawning loudly as he went. He raised his hands and massaged his eyes, trying to remove some of the debris that had accumulated in the corner of his eyes. He took his seat between Hinata and Yuno, or so he believed, and sighed. Tsubaki was seated on his right instead of Hinata. What's going on? What happened to Hinata?" he said, raising an eyebrow as he glanced between them. "We've agreed to trade seats. From now on, Yuno-chan and I are going to take real good care of you, sweetheart," Tsubaki stated with a simple smile. Leaning closer and kissing his whiskered face, Yuno gave him a joyful smile. "Darling, you're never going to feel lonely or hurt again. From now on, we're here for you." Naruto managed to stutter out a response as his face turned a deep shade of scarlet, but before he could say anything at all, 2 purple-haired women entered the room. He was reminded of Shikamaru's haircut by the way the first woman's hair was tied up. She had brown eyes and was dressed in an odd combination of shorts that reached nearly to her knees, mesh armor that covered her body, a long trench coat, and a necklace made of snake fangs that hung loosely around her neck. The first woman was equally attractive as the second. She had a Chunin flak vest, mesh armor similar to the first woman's, a loose shirt with the words, "Cold Hard Bitch," in pink and purple lettering on the front, and her hair was pulled up in pigtails. She also had violet eyes. She had on tight jeans that fit her ass and legs well. To Naruto's perplexity, the second woman's eyes met his as they came to a stop in front of the classroom. She gave him a wave and a sly smile. He dismissed it and paid attention to what the First Lady had to say. "We're your new teachers. The name's Anko Mitarashi, and the wonderful woman next to me is Minin Uryu." The now identified Anko scowled as she noticed a young girl with pink hair raise her hand, pleading for a question. "Yes. What is it, girlie?" The snake mistress of Konoha sighed, pointing to the girl, Sakura Haruno. Sakura questioned, "What happened to Haruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei?" with a small frown. With a sigh, Anko turned to her buddy for support. Minin smirked, stepped forward, and stared around the room with a wild smile. "Well, Mizuki's spending some quality time with Ibiki Morino, the head of our T&I department. He's been a naughty boy and needs to be punished for a while. As for Haruka, well, it would seem some feisty animals got to him and slaughtered him quite viciously. He was found dead in an alley near the market district. From what I've been able to gather, he made some people very angry with him. If you ask me, the bastard got what he deserved. Now, any more questions?" Anko and Minin couldn't resist bursting into a fit of laughter as they noticed all the wide eyes in the classroom. They both grinned at all the children when they eventually relaxed. "Glad to see we've got your attention. You see, after certain problems came to light, we were assigned to teach this little class of yours, at least until you graduate." Hokage-sama was a bit, let's call it, concerned that the two of them were showing blatant favoritism and were singling one particular student out as a troublemaker. They were sabotaging his tests and generally treated him like garbage. "Well, that all stops now," Minin said, carefully examining every one of the pupils. She was able to identify her fellow, soon-to-be sister wives as well as those who would be troublesome in their class, those who would fail and most likely leave after a few months of their particular kind of torment. Minin sat down again, and Anko watched as she turned to face Sasuke Uchiha. "Mr. Prissy Pants, since you seem to think you're so special and you were being given such special treatment by those two punks, I've got a little proposition for ya. How's about we all go out back and you and me spar? And you, Muttface, I want you to spar with my partner here. I've heard about your blatant disrespect for women, so I want to see you get dominated in the ring. Should be amusing to watch." Sasuke merely scowled at the woman who had the audacity to criticize him for his preferential treatment, while Kiba growled at the slight to his dignity. He was getting special treatment, of course. He's a Uchiha, a member of the elite. The ground he treads on should be worshipped by the entire village. He felt that way about it, anyway. The Uchiha were among the original clans of Konohagakure, after all. In contrast, Kiba was a pig who was sexist. Even though his mother and sister were quite powerful, some male chauvinist pigs had managed to poison his head by persuading him that a woman should never hold a leadership position. He therefore had no regard for women outside of his clan, even though he did respect his mother and sister. No, they were intended primarily for breeding and to serve their superiors. In this case, him. Women ought to be swarming to him since he was an alpha male. That is what he believed, anyway. These two kids needed to be brought down a few dozen pegs since they were conceited jerks. Thus, Kiba and Minin entered the sparring ring after the rest of the class stood up and moved outside to the practice area. For now, Sasuke and Anko were happy to watch Kiba spar with one of their new teachers as they waited for their turn. Tsubaki took a seat on Naruto's left side and grinned. "Minin-chan's going to mop the floor with the runt. Darling, make sure to pay good attention to this fight. It's important that you realize just how capable our new teacher is," she whispered, placing her arms over his left arm and resting her head on his shoulder. After blinking in perplexity, Naruto just nodded his head. "All right." He blushed a little when Tsubaki called him darling once more. He soon sensed that his right hand was being held. The fact that Yuno was on his right side, entwining her fingers with his, did not surprise him. With a menacing smile, she remarked, "Su-chan is right. Just enjoy watching Mr. Mud get his butt kicked. Though if it were up to me, he wouldn't be walking out of here alive. Nobody will get away with treating you badly." For a little period, the blonde laughed awkwardly and smiled before turning back to Minin and Kiba. "I see. Thank you." Yuno laid her head on his shoulder and whispered with a smile, "You're welcome, sweetheart." After giving Minin a quick glance, Kiba shrugged. He said to the puppy perched on his head, "Matt, what can you do? Come on, let's get this match over with. I'm gonna mop the floor with you. Right, buddy?" The dog merely barked before snuggling up in Kiba's hair and falling asleep, which Minin found amusing. "Ah, Whittle puppy doesn't want to bother with this. Might wanna put him somewhere safe, lest he get caught up in the pounding I'm about to give you." After scoffing, the young Inuzuka left the ring and placed Akamaru down out of danger. He then returned to the ring and gave the new instructor a sly smile. Ready when you are ugly. After giving a small laugh, the purple-haired woman declared, I'm going to break one of your legs just for that. As she declared the fight to begin, Anko couldn't help but smile savagely. That's something the runt will regret saying. As expected, Kiba was taken by surprise when Minin blocked his blows and then kicked him in the leg, sending him crashing to the ground while he screamed and clutched his leg. Minin grabbed him by the hair and gave him a mischievous smile before he could respond. You're one of those bullies that likes to torment Naruto-kun. Guess what, runt? That ends today. From now on, I want you to call him Naruto-sama and treat him with the same kind of respect you'd show your mom and sister. If I catch you trying to bully him again, I will break you. Is that understood? Kiba gave her a snarl and attempted to slug her, but she stomped his leg once again, causing a horrible snap sound that was audible to everyone. I asked you a question, runt. Do you understand? The young guy Inuzuka bobbed his head and let out a pathetic moan. Why yes, please let me go, I need help. Minin clapped her hands and smirked down at Kiba, dropping him to the ground. Perfect. Anko-chan, I'll take him to the hospital to get all patched up. You have fun making a fool of the little Uke. Okay. Minin gathered up Akamaru under one of her arms before grabbing Kiba and disappearing in a body flicker, while Sasuke erupted in a mix of shame and rage. With a sly smile, Anko walked into the ring opposite Sasuke and said, Go ahead, prissy pants, show me what you've got. With a growl, Sasuke lunged at the conceited, at least in his imagination, instructor. He was a little taken aback when she just grabbed his fist and stopped him cold after he threw a blow at her. He bent over her fist and spat up a glob of saliva on the floor as she rammed it hard into his stomach before he could respond. Anko lifted her foot and gave Sasuke a forceful kick to the face, sending him reeling back. He coughed a couple of times and dry heaved for a moment as he stumbled to his feet, and then he stood up again. He decided to wait for her to make a move this time so he could possibly respond and beat her, and he turned to scowl at the new academy teacher. Ah, is the big bad baby afraid of little ol' Anko-chan? Good, because you should be. Anko laughed and stalked slowly in his direction. Then, she slipped past his guard and delivered 3 powerful punches to his face and chest in quick succession, sending him flying out of the ring and into the side of the academy building. She laughed menacingly when he fell to the ground and failed to get back up, saying, And that's what you deserved, you arrogant little prick. Anko turned to the other students and gave them a few enthusiastic hand claps while grinning broadly. And that, boys and girls, is why you don't fuck with Anko-chan and Minin-chan. There will be no more hand-holding in this class, and there will be no more bullying or discrimination either. From now on, you all play nice and you're all going to be put through the ringer. You're either going to come out of this class as future badasses, or you're going to run home crying to your mommies and daddies. Understood? Sasuke's fangirls were initially tempted to yell in disapproval of what had transpired, but they prudently chose to remain silent. However, Anko smirked at them after noticing the expressions in their eyes. That reminds me. You fangirls are in for quite the rude awakening. You won't have time to fawn over that broody runt, nor will you even want to. You're either going to toughen the hell up, stop dieting, and become a bunch of badass future kunoichi, or you're going to drop out and go crying to your mommies, telling them all about the mean old bitch you've got for a sensei now. If you don't think you can handle it, I suggest you run on home right now and don't come back. Too terrified by their new teacher to stay, around half of the kunoichi hopefuls fled. Sasuke. Screw you. If they wanted to pine after him, he wasn't worth the torment they would have to go through. No, that would be left to the ardent fangirls who thought their devotion to Sasuke-kun was unbreakable. Anko found herself smiling sadistically as she looked at the remaining female students. Before her gaze settled on Yuno Gasai and Tsubaki Kasagano, she remarked, Oh, this is going to be fun. You two look capable enough. Question though, are you fangirls or are you planning to be badass kunoichis? Yuno laughed and replied, Fangirls are a disgrace to kunoichi everywhere. No, we're going to become so strong that nothing will be able to so much as threaten our beloved Naruto-kun, let alone get close enough to hurt him. We fight to keep him safe. There's no way we'll let our skills stagnate and no chance that we'll fail to meet your expectations, Anko-sensei. There was silence for a while. But after a long period of this silence, Anko smiled and then burst out laughing. After she had calmed down, she smiled at the girls and wiped away a stray tear. Glad to hear it. You're not letting your love for Naruto-kun get in the way of your desires to be strong kunoichi. You'll do well in my class. Tsubaki remarked, Thank you Anko-sensei. After giving a nod, Anko turned back to face her new classmates. All right, kiddos. I want you to get started on some basic stretches to limber up while I take Uke-chan to the nurse's office to get checked out. When Minin-chan and I get back, we're going to start you on some spars to gauge your skill levels and see what we've got to work with. I'm going to give you fair warning, we're going to be brutal. We're going to train you from the ground up and, by the time you all graduate, you're going to be way more than prepared for whatever the hell comes your way. You see, the two of us don't give a shit what the council has to say. We're going to train you how we see fit, teach you what we feel you need to know, and because of this fact, you're going to be way above those other weak rookies that will graduate before and after you. Is this understood? Everyone yelled, yes, Anko-sensei, at once. Naruto got up and grinned at his new pals as soon as she left. I have to admit, I'm kinda nervous. I know I'm not very good at this just yet. Yuno gave him a charming grin and leaned in to give him a cheek kiss. You'll be fine, sweetheart. We believe in you. If things start to look bad, don't be afraid to use your gift, Tsubaki said in a whisper, smiling as she leaned in and nibbled at Naruto's ear. After a moment of blinking and staring into her eye, Naruto turned to face Yuno. He seems to have experienced a revelation of some sort. You two were given gifts too, weren't you? Does that mean you've met Deus-sama? Yuno booped him on the nose and smiled at him. Of course, sweetheart. We'll always protect you, and we'll always be together. You have absolutely nothing to worry about anymore. Tears were forming in the young blonde's eyes. Thank you both. I've never had friends before, let alone ones as great as you two. As she loved to do, Yuno leaned in close and kissed his cheek, saying, you'll never be alone again. Both teachers eventually came back and grinned at their pupils. When they appeared to understand, Anko glanced at a clipboard with the class roster pinned to it. All right, so this is how it's going to go down. We're going to call you up at random and have you beat the shit out of each other until we know what we're dealing with. When we call for a match to stop, that means we've seen enough and you'd better stop the damn fight, otherwise you won't like what happens to ya. Yuno Gasai and Ino Yamanaka, get up here. Yuno entered the ring, stood opposite Ino, and smiled sadistically. One of Naruto's bullies. Her opponent would constantly make fun of him to cheer herself up whenever Sasuke turned her down. Even if Sakura, the pink-haired whore, never physically assaulted him, Ino's actions were nevertheless unacceptable. Yuno frowned as he turned to face Sakura, thinking, you'll get yours, bitch. You simply wait. Sakura shuddered in dread at the glance directed at her and hurriedly turned away from her potential predator. She was giving thanks in silence to whichever deity had saved her from having to battle that insane bitch. With a sinister smile, Yuno turned to face her opponent and declared, I'm going to enjoy tearing you apart. When Ino Yamanaka, a blonde, was matched with Miss Psycho Bitch, she realized she was doomed. Like every other student in their class, she had witnessed what Yuno had done yesterday. The normally quiet and reserved girl who seldom talked to anyone, Yuno, had become a total nutcase. Ino confessed to being utterly afraid of Yuno, even if just to herself. She was starting to sincerely regret not taking her training more seriously at this point, as it was the worst matchup she could have imagined. Moreover, she was on a diet, which was not healthy for a possible kunoichi. Both Minin and Anko noted how afraid Ino was of her opponent. They both nodded in agreement as they looked into each other's eyes and realized that Yuno was the one who had attacked Kiro. Because of her attack, Kiro was quite likely to spend the remainder of his life in a wheelchair or on crutches. This girl appeared to have no regret for her actions, despite the fact that the damage she had caused was immense. No, she had the appearance of a predator sizing up a thin little mouse. At the moment, she appeared positively ferocious. It should be entertaining to watch this. A smirk tugged at Minin's lips as she thought to herself. I'm excited to watch what one of my future sister wives does here. And the other one, the new academy instructor, couldn't help but smile as she looked over her shoulder at Tsubaki. I might simply put her up against Sakura Haruno, the queen bitch. She deserves to suffer as well because she has consistently mistreated Naruto-kun. Anko glanced over her shoulder at the pink-haired bitch after noticing her friend's intense gaze. It will be enjoyable. Her smile was savage as she pondered. All right girlies, have at it. Taijutsu only. Ninjutsu and genjutsu are forbidden. I want a friendly spar between the two of you. No maiming one another, Anko remarked, turning back to face Yuno and Ino. Before realizing that the new instructor hadn't stated that she couldn't beat the living daylights out of this bitch, Yuno appeared to sulk briefly at this. Yuno smiled to herself once more and rushed forward, grabbing the bitch by the head and repeatedly slamming her face into her knee until the blonde's nose was broken. Blood was streaming from her mouth, and she appeared to be very confused before Yuno could react. Don't pass out yet. The fun has only just started, Yuno murmured menacingly into her opponent's ear as she tightened her grip on her hair as she appeared close to faint. Without using the kunai she always carried concealed on her person, the class watched as Yuno continued to beat the ever-loving snot out of Ino. When it was all over, Ino was lying in the ring, her body asleep, tears running down her cheeks as she drifted into blissful unconsciousness. Anko and Minin glanced at her. With a dry laugh, Anko shook her head and declared Yuno the winner of the spar. She needed to release some pent-up aggression, in my opinion. Blondie, poor thing. Minin put a gentle hand on Yuno's shoulder to stop her in her tracks as she attempted to pass the instructors. Good job. Nobody gets away with hurting Naruto-kun, she said in a whisper as she leaned down. Yuno peered up into Minin's eyes and blinked a few times. She just nodded and returned to her future husband and one of her future sister wives without saying anything. Deus-sama's gift must have also been handed to her. Sakura Haruno and Tsubaki Kasagano, get your butts up here now and give us a good show, Minin exclaimed, taking advantage of the astonished quiet of the audience to turn to face Sakura. Got something against the fangirls, Nene-chan? Anko muttered to her companion while also smiling. The only thing Minin said to Anko was, they need to be taught a very important lesson. Don't hurt Naruto-kun. As the selected fighters took their positions, Anko could only nod her head in agreement while chuckling gently. Begin, she yelled when they were prepared. When Sakura saw what had occurred to Ino in the first match, she initially hesitated. Nevertheless, she was aware that she needed to attack in order to avoid suffering the same fate as Naruto fangirl number 2. Thus, she lunged forward and struck Tsubaki's visible eye with a fist. With a groan, Tsubaki pushed Sakura's fist away and then quickly drove her elbow into Sakura's sternum 3 times. She then gave the pinkette a roundhouse kick, causing her to fall hard to the ground after smacking her on the side of the head. Do try to put up more of a fight, fangirl. I want to have some fun with you before I knock your ass out. You've picked on and beat Naruto-kun senseless numerous times simply for being nice to you. I think it's high time somebody dishes out your punishment, don't you? The girl with the pink hair stumbled to her feet and gave Tsubaki a fierce look. At this point, Sakura started to laugh perversely, but she stopped when she sensed a great deal of murderous intent directed at her. What the hell do you see in that loser anyways? He's a freak. My mom told me he's just a lousy demon and deserves to suffer for what he's done. Now Sasuke-kun, she shivered in terror as she looked into Tsubaki's eye and noticed how full of hatred the girl had. Naruto-kun is no demon, little Sakura. He's far nicer than your precious Sasuke-kun. He's smarter, stronger, kinder, and all around better than that loser could ever be. All he's ever been is nice to you and everyone else, and you all hate him for it. For nothing, you and that Amy bitch are the absolute worst offenders, abusing him simply to make yourselves feel better after Sasuke rejects you. That damn emo's a punk that needs to pull the stick out of his ass before it gets lodged in his brain. No, Sakura, I'm going to break you, Tsubaki said as she began to stalk her rival. Sakura begged her body to stop shaking and to move, but nothing she said or did could get her to stop. A second later, she sensed a warm substance dripping down her leg. She looked down and saw that in her panic, she had urinated on herself. Sakura started crying as Tsubaki drew closer and closer, knowing full well what was going to happen to her. She was correct, in fact. She was then brutalized by Tsubaki, who beat her until she was immobile and fell on the ground in a heap. Sakura finally let herself fall into blissful oblivion as the match was ultimately called in Tsubaki's favor. Similar to Yuno, Minin halted Tsubaki and thanked the youngling in a whisper. Then she moved forward, seized Sakura by the shoulder, and disappeared with her in a body flicker. Although neither she nor Ino had sustained injuries severe enough to necessitate a prolonged hospital stay, they both desperately needed medical attention. Everyone was startled out of their dazed trances by Anko's voice. She pointed to a random boy and said, "Okay, boys and girls, who's ready for the next match? Naruto Uzumaki and nameless idiot number 2. In addition to having spiky brown hair and a small scar beneath his left eye, the boy she was pointing at was wearing clothes that were a little loose on him. Looking at Anko, he said, "My name is Keisuke Suzuhara. And why are you only calling him by name when you've called everyone else by their names?" Anko laughed and replied, "Because I actually like him. You're just another pompous prick with a little dick that likes to act like you're hot shit. Now get in the ring and let's get this match started, and just so you know, I'm rooting for you, Naruto. Have fun." As he entered the arena and took his place across from Naruto, Keisuke frowned. Don't see why he's so special. Girls on each arm, getting away with the shit he's pulled, now you're treating him like he's something special. Naruto composed himself and took a few deep breaths before assuming the taijutsu position he had been taught, while his opponent moaned in frustration. Enko frowned to herself when she saw his posture and realized that Nene-chan and I would have to start from scratch while teaching him. Out there, the two jerks were genuinely attempting to kill him. Enko yelled, "Begin!" After another moment, and Keisuke rushed at Naruto, slamming a fist into his face as soon as she announced the start of the bout. As if realizing that the punch was really a prelude to Keisuke's actual attack, an attempted roundhouse kick that would have nailed him in the side of his head, Naruto made to dodge, but his eyes widened as he swiftly twisted around behind him. Keisuke turned to face Naruto, blinking in disbelief, but was struck in the face by a punch, which knocked out one of his teeth and sent him to the ground. Naruto gazed at Keisuke's fist as he lay there, clutching his face in agony, as though he were in disbelief that he had really delivered a blow. He saw a picture of Keisuke's next strike, though, so he didn't have much time to consider it. Naruto leapt to his feet quickly, ducked under Keisuke's attempted sweep kick, and then, while in midair, delivered a kick of his own, this time catching Keisuke in the nose. When he hit the ground again, he leapt back, out of range of his opponent. The idea that Naruto was actually winning a fight surprised the other pupils into quiet. They were inclined to try to rule out a potential genjutsu because this had never happened before, but something in the back of their thoughts told them that this was actually happening. Meanwhile, Anko grinned while observing Naruto briefly bounce in place. I'll give the kid credit for having promise. Naruto was temporarily surprised by the intense hatred he saw in Keisuke's eyes as he staggered to his feet and gave him a scowl. But instead of constantly retorting his opponent's attacks, Naruto decided it was time to attack. He rushed in close and attempted to punch Keisuke, but his eyes widened slightly before he ducked low and accidentally nailed his opponent in the genitals with his fist. Naruto was astonished when the brown-haired youth's eyes rolled up into his head and he fell to the ground, grasping his privates. I am sorry, I didn't mean to hit you there. Anko immediately started giggling while the other kids sat in awe of what they had just seen. Oh man, that's great, you sure nailed him good. That should make him think twice about fucking with you again, huh Naruto? In response, Yuno and Tsubaki started cheering for Naruto as he simply nodded stupidly. Naruto pulled back to their side and sat down between them again, blushing. He paid no attention to the glances he received from the other students. I prevailed. It still amazes me that I won a fight. After school, Naruto realized that two people were after him as he started his journey home after school finally broke out for the day. He turned around and gave Tsubaki and Yuno a questioning glance. Why are you two following me? Tsubaki chose to start by giving an explanation. We're hoping you'll let us move in with you, Naruto-kun. My clan doesn't exactly treat me very well. I want to move in with you where it's safer for me. I don't trust my clanmates. Yuno stared calmly into Naruto's eyes and, I had Muru-chan kill my parents. They abused me. They attempted to starve me to death, and, let's just say I was tired of all the abuse. I can't live on my own, so please let me move in with you. Naruto scratched the back of his head and moaned as they both bowed to him. I didn't know. I'm sorry you've had to go through all of that. It might be awkward, but sure, you can both move in with me. There's plenty of room in my parents' home. Both females glomped onto him and gave him a tight embrace after hearing this. Thank you, Naru-kun, they both joyfully cried out. Naruto seized their hands and led them to his house while chuckling quietly. Naruto would assist them in packing and moving into his house when they had settled in and selected their rooms, if they had any preferences. They were a little taken aback when they arrived at the gate to his new house and saw Minin standing there, grinning broadly as she stared at them. About damn time you got here. I've only been waiting for half a damn hour. Come on and open the gate. I've already got my things packed and ready to move in. All you gotta do is let me into your home. In disbelief, Naruto blinked a few times. Wait, what? You're moving in too? Damn right I am. If the three of us are going to be sharing you, we might as well all live together under one roof. You don't have a problem with that, do ya Naruto-kun? The academy instructor replied, laughing and nodding. The blonde started to say something, but stopped and sighed. Before he unlocked the gate and led the three of them into his house, he mumbled, sure thing, and stumbled a little. Before entering his house, he made sure the gate closed on its own because he didn't trust the elderly monkey or his one-eyed teammate. This is going to be really uncomfortable. Once more, Naruto stood in front of Deus Ex Machina, looking up at him with a deadpan expression. Okay, Seriously Deus-sama? What's with you and playing matchmaker? I mean, Minin-sensei is 7 years older than I am. I don't understand her obsession with me, and then the other two. With a sigh, Deus reached down and gave Naruto a head pat. Relax, young one. I simply chose those three for the reason that they will keep you safe and give you a reason to grow stronger. Having those precious to you nearby will only push you farther and make you stronger in the long run. Besides that, I needed them around to keep you safe from harm. There are particular circumstances surrounding you that you cannot deal with on your own. I chose only those with the potential to become the strongest to be with you. As for being with you in a romantic light, I only wanted you to be with those who were best suited to you. I figured you would be happy. The little child looked aside, blushing a little, and scratched at the tip of his nose. Why yeah, I am. But what if I end up upsetting them or something? They can be kind of scary sometimes. The big god just laughed and said, I highly doubt they could remain angry or upset with you for very long. They're already rather fond of you, and they're fiercely protective of you as well. I would be more worried about those around you that might mean you harm in any sense of the word. Those three will punish any offenders most severely. That's true. Just gotta look at Sakura and the others and you can easily see just how vicious they can be to anyone that's even remotely mean to me, Naruto said. He said, but what about Minin-sensei? How does she even know me? We only just met, after a little pause, looking up at Deus once more. You really don't recognize her without her mask? Minin is one of the few Anbu that did their job properly. She oftentimes volunteered to look after you, and soon became infatuated with you, despite you being years younger than her. I warn you now though that she has a obsession of sorts with explosives. She also rather enjoys the art of torture, even relishing in it at times if only for her own amusement. Naruto pondered for a while, trying to remember which Anbu Minin might have been. However, he blinked in recognition after a while and said to himself, Anbu Fox. Wait. When Naruto looked up at him, Deus chuckled a bit and said, she chose Fox because of you. At first she went with the hyena mask, but after she became so fond of you, she chose to take up the fox mask instead. Minin Uryu is an interesting individual, and I can guarantee she'll be good for you. I've already things in motion for her to become your Jonin-sensei. And thanks to Muru, your teammates shall be Yuno Gasai and Tsubaki Kasagano. You will make for an excellent team and I am personally looking forward to hearing about your many exploits and heroic deeds in the future. Though I must warn you about something, young Naruto. Do not rely too heavily on the gift of future sight that I have given you. If you rely on it too heavily, you will become overly dependent on it and, should it fail you, you will have nothing to fall back on. So train hard and become strong enough that you can fight without such a thing. I will continue to offer you what aid I can throughout your life, but in the end, it comes down to how hard you work for your power. No problem there. Kinda can't help it though when those visions flash before my eyes like that. The young man with the whiskers nodded resolutely, massaged the back of his head, and then grinned brightly at his friend. Regardless, with yours and Muru-chan's help, I promise to become the most kick-ass shinobi ever. Though, I do have a question for you Deus-sama. Looking down at his companion, Deus knew what he was going to ask and replied, why have I taken such an interest in you? It's quite simple, my young friend. You possess a pure heart, despite the hell you've been through. You're a wonderful young man and I'm so proud of you. But, more than that, I'm looking for a potential replacement before my time is up. I cannot stay here forever, and Muru will need the company after I'm gone. Naruto-kun, I have chosen you as my replacement, when that time comes. You will become a god in the most literal sense of the word. You will live for an eternity and more, and, should you so wish it, you can grant your lovers the gift of immortality so that you may never lose one another. Do you understand? To say that Naruto was astonished would be an understatement, but, I don't want you to go, Deus-sama. And why me? I don't understand, he cried, staring into Deus' eyes incredulously. With a sorrowful sigh, Deus shook his head, before sending Naruto back to his house in Konoha with a wave of his hand, he remarked, I have made my choice, Naruto-kun. I trust you, and only you, to fulfill my wish. Now, I think it's time to send you back. Take some time to think on what I have told you. Naruto-kun, I genuinely hope you comprehend in due time. After 2 years during today's spar, Naruto, who is 10 years old, was visible standing across from his opponent. He genuinely detested Sasuke Uchiha, the boy across from him. He was still the conceited little brat he had been before his clan's death, even after Anko-sensei had done him this 2 years ago. However, Naruto had only moved up the class standings, whilst Sasuke had dropped significantly. Sasuke was now ranked 6th in the class, while Naruto was now ranked 2nd. Because the professors genuinely preferred the blonde over Naruto, the conceited jerk had made the decision to hold Naruto accountable for his shortcomings. Sasuke believed that Anko and Minin were almost indulging the blonde asshole, even though they were careful to treat everyone in their class equally and weren't showing preference. Conversely, Kiba was making every effort to be as unimportant as possible. Despite his pride, which prevented him from calling Naruto Naruto-sama, he was so terrified of the teachers that he mostly kept to himself. There was no denying that he was still conceited, but he was being shrewd and just left Naruto alone. Because of what Anko and Minin had taught them, the fangirls had begun to take on a good shape. The majority of them had woken up from their "I adore Sasuke-kun. Give me his children" phase and were now focusing on their academy days with the aim of becoming outstanding kunoichi in the future. Some of the ardent fangirls, on the other hand, stayed devoted to Sasuke throughout it all since they were still fixated on him. Among them were Sakura Haruno, Ino Yamanaka, and Amy, among others. The idea that Naruto Uzumaki was surpassing their beloved Sasuke-kun did not sit well with any of them. They would have taken action if they weren't so afraid of the purple-haired kunoichi. Because of all the training he received from Minin, Deus, and Muru during the previous 2 years, Naruto had advanced significantly. Minin had fixed his taijutsu, and he was now developing a nice style, albeit it was still not perfect. Fortunately, there were still several years remaining in the academy, so he would have plenty of time to build on his skills. Naruto took a time to consider all of this before his thoughts turned to the Hokage. His hatred toward the man. But for the last 2 years, Hiruzen had not taken any action against Naruto, probably as a result of Muru's influence. Training with her had taught Naruto that when she felt like it, she could be utterly terrifying. All he could hope for was that Hiruzen would work with him and not try to pair him up with someone like Sasuke Uchiha. He let out a little sigh before thinking about Deus Ex Machina. Perhaps even more than he would have loved his own father, he loved Deus as he would have a father. He was nevertheless troubled by the idea that Deus would eventually depart for whatever reason he felt he had to. He resolved to prove himself worthy of Deus and his title, nevertheless, and had learned to embrace Deus' words and wishes. Naruto sighed in boredom as he brought his thoughts back to the present and gazed at Sasuke indifferently. The proctor for this spar, Anko, was not in view as Naruto bowed his head and declared, "I'm ready." Naruto assumed his prepared position as the spar began, and he watched as Sasuke used his special taijutsu technique to do the same. Naruto made a self-promise to refrain from using his future sight ability for this specific spar because it was the first he had had with Sasuke in more than a year. He wanted to assert that he won this battle using his own skills rather than some kind of cheat code. As Sasuke took the bait and charged at him, believing his defenses were down, Naruto took a long breath and closed his eyes for a second, grinning internally. He opened his eyes after a brief pause, knocked Sasuke's fist away, and then grabbed Sasuke by the hair before striking him 3 times in the face, shattering his opponent's nose. Naruto let go of his opponent and gave him a kick to the chest, causing him to stumble backwards. Unwilling to give up on his opponent, Naruto lunged forward and swung a fist at Sasuke's face once more. However, Sasuke sidestepped and aimed a strike at his ribs. Naruto swiftly deflected Sasuke's fist with his left hand, then turned around and slammed his elbow into Sasuke's face. He then extended his arm and briefly knocked Sasuke to his knees. After leaping above Sasuke's attempted sweep kick, Naruto turned around once again and gave his opponent a forceful kick to the side of the head, causing him to fall to the ground and choke on dirt. With a growl, Sasuke stood up and wiped some blood from his lips before turning to gaze at Naruto with a frown. "I refuse to lose to you. I won't have it." The blonde raised an eyebrow and then shrugged casually. "Looks to me like you don't really have a choice in the matter. You're getting your ass kicked and I haven't even been hit yet. If you don't think of something, you're going to lose this spar and prove to everyone just how weak you really are. Then again, I guess that's why Itachi let you live. You were just too pathetic to bother killing." Sasuke became enraged as a result of Naruto's statements. He flipped through hand seals and threw the biggest fireball he could generate at Naruto before anybody could stop him. Naruto's eyes widened a little as he raised his palm and used some of the power Deus had given him to make the fireball smaller till it passed harmlessly over his head. Naruto sighed in relief, but before Anko could put an end to the fight, Sasuke emerged out of nowhere and repeatedly pounded his fist into his face. When Sasuke tried to hit him again, Naruto seized his fist, furious that he had used his jutsu and that he had attempted to kill him. As the seconds went by, Naruto applied more and more pressure, until the bones in Sasuke's hand creaked and started to shatter under the weight of Naruto's hold, forcing him to his knees. Naruto exclaimed, "You fucking asshole. You tried to kill me in a friendly spar. Well, I think it's time you got what was coming to you." He then repeatedly slammed his forehead against Sasuke's skull until it appeared as though Sasuke was about to faint. Unwilling to give up on the jerk, Naruto tightened his hold on Sasuke's hair and repeatedly slammed Sasuke's face against his knee before letting the Uchiha drop to the ground, dazed and defeated. Then, to make matters worse, he kicked Sasuke hard in the stomach and spat in his face, sending him sliding out of the arena. "Take that, you lousy prick." Minin, who had been standing next to Enko witnessing the entire fight, approached Naruto and forced him to look up at her. She took a handkerchief from a pocket of her Chunin flak jacket and wiped the blood from his face while he sighed at his bleeding nose. "Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Don't worry, the prick will get what's coming to him. Anko-chan and I will take him to the Hokage and explain what happened. Sasuke can and will be punished for his actions here." Naruto merely shook his head and grinned up at her. "It's fine. I should have seen it coming. Still, I sincerely hope that old bastard will ensure Sasuke gets what's coming to him. The asshole tried to kill me all because I insulted him. I didn't think even he was that unstable." The other kids in the class were in shock over what they had just seen as Naruto and Minin conversed. In an amicable altercation, Sasuke had tried to murder a classmate. On top of that, Naruto had won the fight with only minor injuries to himself after demonstrating some sort of special ability to save his own life. They were unsure of how to feel and what to think, but what about Yuno and Tsubaki? They were enraged. Because of what the Uchiha had just done to their beloved, they wished to murder him. But they were aware that if they killed Sasuke, the council's renowned wisdom would make their beloved's life much more difficult. Even worse, the Hokage would probably take their side and not offer Naruto any assistance. Reluctantly, they made the decision to hold off on getting even with the jerk. They were undoubtedly going to reimburse him for his actions here, and this occasion would not be forgotten. Perhaps they could kill him on a mission outside the village and make it appear as though he was battling an enemy. They shook their heads and agreed to come up with ideas for killing Sasuke later. Their Naruto-kun needed them for the time being. They fussed over Naruto as soon as he sat down by their side, carefully feeling his nose to see if it was broken. Yuno sighed and, as gently as she could, set his nose for him to allow it to heal correctly when he just winced a little. With a sorrowful pout, she questioned, "Are you going to be okay, sweetheart?" "I'll be fine. It'll be healed up in no time thanks to you know what." The young man with the whiskers nodded. "For now, it seems like it's your turn, Yuno-chan. Have fun." Yuno sighed and turned as she heard her name called before entering the ring. She was happy to find that Amy was her opponent this time when she glanced across at her. Cracking her knuckles, Yuno giggled, "Oh, I've been looking forward to this. Even after all this time, you still don't seem to get it that Naruto-kun is off limits now. You still seem to think you can mistreat him. Well, I'd say it's time to teach you the lesson the hard way." Staring down her soon-to-be tormentor, Amy shuddered, but after a moment to collect herself, she scoffed and glared at Yuno. "Not sure what you see in the loser. He's a monster, just like my parents told me. I mean, did you see what he did to Sasuke-kun? And that strange power he used too. He's a damn freak of nature that deserves to be put down like the dog he is." When Kiba heard this, he growled violently and gave his dog, Akamaru, a gentle pat. Apart from the fangirls that love Sasuke-kun, the other pupils weren't really fond of Amy either. Yuno grinned and said, "Just for that, I'm going to break you. I may not be allowed to kill you or remove limbs, but I can and will destroy you. You're going to apologize to Naruto-kun and mean it by the time I'm done with you." The purple-haired lady continued, "Fat chance of that happening. Without your precious weapons, you're just a pathetic little bitch. I'm tired of your shit, Yuno. You're so full of yourself and you are fucking insane. After all you've done, I think it's time somebody puts you in your place. Now bow before me and swear to stop chasing after that loser and I may just let you off with a warning." With a raised eyebrow, Yuno laughed to herself. "Oh yeah, I'm going to enjoy tearing you down, you pathetic wannabe. Enko-sensei, start the match. I want to kick this bitch's ass." With a sigh, Enko murmured, "Please do. I'm tired of listening to her shit." The teacher waved her hand to begin the match, then watched as Amy charged at Yuno before abruptly collapsing to her knees and throwing up the meal she had eaten hours earlier. Enko raised an eyebrow and turned to face Yuno, who was grinning malevolently at the girl with the purple hair. "For a child, that's quite impressive killing intent. I'm amazed." The pink-haired yandere approached her opponent with deliberate, unhurried movements while wearing a menacing smile. Too scared to stand up and face me. Then again, I suppose that's to be expected, coming from a worthless fangirl like you. Have you even trained seriously in your spare time? Or do you just try and make yourself look pretty for your precious Sasuke-kun? Then again, it would take a serious makeover to make you look even remotely presentable. Do tell me something, did you inherit that ugly mug from your mother or your father? I'm curious. Amy growled as she slowly got back up on her feet. At least I'm better than you, ya ugly skank. I bet only Naruto could ever love a face like that. She spat out, wiping her lips with the back of her sleeve. Yuno raised an eyebrow and burst out laughing. What's your point? If Naruto-kun loves me, then that's all that matters to me. I don't see how what you said could possibly be interpreted as an insult. After a moment of staring at her in disbelief, Yuno's opponent darted a peek at Naruto. She frowned and turned to face Yuno, who was directly in front of her. What the hell's so special about him anyways? You and Tsubaki seem to think he's this great guy for some reason. Why? Sasuke-kun is so much better, Amy said, quickly distanced herself from the crazed bitch. At least in her imagination. In sympathy for the girl in front of her, the pinkette sighed and shook her head. Tell me something, Amy. Has Sasuke ever once treated you and the others kindly? Has he so much as said a word in greeting to you? Amy scowled and was going to say, yes, my beloved Sasuke-kun treated me nicely all the time, but after giving it some serious thought, she realized that Sasuke never showed her or the others any kindness. He was consistently harsh, impolite, and a complete jerk toward everyone. Then why? Yuno said with a sigh, Naruto-kun is different from Sasuke. He treats everyone kindly and gives respect when it's due. He talks with us and he makes us laugh, makes us smile, and makes us feel special. We see in Naruto-kun what others refuse to see. I wouldn't trade him and his love for anything, especially not that loser Sasuke. Do you understand? Amy sighed and shook her head, frowning even more. I see your point, but I'm not going to forsake my devotion to Sasuke-kun. He just needs someone to heal his wounded heart. Yeah, I've heard that a million times already. It got old pretty fast. Listen, are you going to give up and walk out of this ring in one piece? Or do you really want to push me and see what I can do to you? Because, as I said before, I will break you. Yuno said, scowling at the woman who was her rival. Amy wanted to keep fighting, but she made the decision to give up and accept her defeat after what had occurred to her earlier. She then walked out of the ring and sat down next to her pals, waving over her shoulder. When Yuno saw this, she shrugged her shoulders and proceeded to sit with Naruto and Tsubaki once more after winning. But she couldn't get the notion that Amy wouldn't let things go. Yuno could tell that Tsubaki felt it too, as she looked into her eye. They were unable to identify the horrible thing that was about to happen. At moments like these, Yuno wished fervently that she had Naruto's level of future sight capability. She could see into his future, of course, but it was a restricted power. With a gentle sigh, Yuno laid her head on Naruto's shoulder and shut her eyes, letting herself enjoy his company. I will always keep you safe, my love, I swear. That evening, Naruto was concerned. He had a terrible sense that things were going to get a lot worse very quickly ever since he beat Sasuke. He would have isolated himself in his safe haven at home if it weren't for the fact that he had to go grocery shopping, even though the jerks tried to charge him outrageous prices. He dealt with this by repeatedly slamming the faces of the various owners into the wall and the counter until they agreed to stop being dicks. He would have been accompanied by Yuno, Tsubaki, and Minin, but they preferred to spend some time soaking in the hot springs. They mentioned that they wanted to get rid of the tension from the day, or, more accurately, the week. Naruto realized that something was seriously wrong as he made his way home through the streets. Since it was just about 8 p.m., the streets would typically be crowded. But when he turned to glance around, he saw that no one was present. It felt and appeared to be a true ghost town. It only became this way when he realized what was happening and said, shit. As he approached the corner, he was confronted by a sizable crowd, all of whom were pointing their weapons and giving him a menacing grimace. One of the men in the front of the crowd replied, "Why hello there, brat. It's been a while. We heard what you did to Sasuke-kun today. You're getting too cocky for your own good." Naruto turned and started to flee, knowing what would happen if he attempted to fight back against them. The fact that this particular mob included experienced shinobi made it even more difficult to escape, which is what frightened him about it. Naruto eventually spotted a girl his age up ahead. As he approached, he realized it was Amy, a classmate. The purple-haired girl waved to him and yelled, "This way, Naruto. Hurry," when she saw him and the crowd pursuing him. Naruto hurried over to her and scowled in perplexity. For the first time in her life, she was being helpful. Right now, his future sight talent was displaying a plethora of potential futures, pointing out what paths he could follow and which ones would be detrimental to him, but none of them provided any insight into the consequences of Ami's actions. He therefore fled with Amy for a while in spite of his better judgment. However, after some time, Naruto reached a dead end and turned to sneer at Amy, but he was startled by something hitting the back of his head. By this time, he could hear Ami's voice. "Hey, he's over here. Hurry up. This is the asshole hurt Sasuke-kun," she yelled to the crowd. Naruto moaned as he attempted to stand up again, but the punch Amy had delivered had left him completely confused. His vision was blurry, so he couldn't fully make out what she was holding, but he could see that she was holding some kind of blunt weapon. He was kicked hard in the back before he could stand up, landing face first on the ground and filling his mouth with blood and dirt. "I apologize, Minin-chan, Yuno-chan, and Tsubaki-chan." As the crowd started beating him, he thought in silence. After what seemed like an eternity, Naruto felt one of the kunoichi preparing to stab him in the back with what he thought was a sword. However, he chuckled dryly to himself as he heard screaming. "Thanks to Kami, it appears that they have arrived." As expected, Yuno and the others were present and mercilessly murdered every member of the mob. Naruto grinned ruthlessly as he felt blood splash over his cheek. "Take that bitch out." He let his eyes close and pondered. The girls decided it was time to destroy the bitch after they saw Amy and realized she had deceived their boyfriend. But then, as Minin looked down at Amy, she suddenly realized. "You're the one that got them together, aren't you? You spread the news that Naruto-kun beat Sasuke in a spar, spinning the tale just right so they'd band together and do this. Didn't you, you lousy bitch?" Amy put her arms across her chest and looked at them bravely while grinning ominously. "So what if I did? Nobody makes a fool of Sasuke-kun and gets away with it." Tsubaki stepped forward and gave the girl with the purple hair a ferocious glare. The red-eyed girl shook her head in mild surprise when Amy simply grinned more. "Do you even care about what you've done? Naruto-kun's been through enough already without you making things even worse," she said. "I see. Then I suppose we'll just have to make an example of you. Farewell, Amy." For a minute, the girl with purple hair blinked in bewilderment. She opened her mouth to speak, but Yuno Gasai's agonizing grip on her tongue almost made her scream. Her tongue was severed, leaving her to gargle and choke on her own blood before she could fight back in any way. Her tormentors were far from done, though. With a slight smirk, Tsubaki moved forward and stroked Ami's arm with a finger, releasing some energy as he saw Ami's arm begin to deteriorate quickly. "Oh, don't worry, Amy-chan. You still have a long way to go before you're allowed to die. After all, we need to send a very special message to the village. It seems like we've been far too lenient with people like you." "That changes now," the young girl said, laughing devilishly when she saw Amy crying. "They call this being lenient?" Amy thought to herself, whimpering pitifully. "It is painful, it hurts so much. Someone? Anyone? Please save me." Minin pulled out a kunai and grinned down at Amy. "He. You're going to wish for the sweet release of death real soon. But no, it won't be granted to you just yet. Girls, hold her down." With wicked smiles, Yuno and Tsubaki pinned Amy on the ground and drove her to her knees. The purple-haired girl could feel her body trembling in terror as Minin approached her and started to lick the blade of her kunai. Although she didn't know what Minin was about to do, she had a gut feeling that she wouldn't like it. The violet-eyed woman peered down at the young girl and started to carve the top of Ami's head until she had completely scalped her, causing the skin and hair to fall to the ground. The females couldn't contain their laughter when they saw Ami's condition. They started to completely shatter Amy bit by little. Using a pretty sharp kunai, Tsubaki gradually started to remove Ami's fingers and toes. They were taken off one by one until Ami's entire digit count was on the ground in front of them. Instead of using his chosen weapon, the kunai, Yuno pulled out a senbon. She started to gradually bring the needle-like weapon closer and closer to Ami's left eye. She just did this to emotionally punish Amy, causing her to writhe and, in her thoughts, plead for forgiveness. As she slowly rubbed the senbon against Ami's eye, smack dab in the middle of her pupil, then pushed it forward straight into the center of her eye, the pink-eyed girl just giggled. This caused Amy to start beating up against them, tears running down her face as she repeatedly pleaded in her head for someone to stop it. But no, she continued to be tortured. Amy attempted to fight her foes despite being blind in her left eye, but it was in vain. Instead, she had to observe as Yuno started to use her remaining eye in the same way. Nevertheless, Amy lost her right eye as well because she lacked the strength to liberate her left. Amy was left totally nude and trembling from the chilly, icy night wind after Minin tore off her clothing. Using every available space on Ami's body, she gradually started carving a message for the Konoha inhabitants. They would need to hear the message clearly, after all, or else this would occur once more. Then Minin said, "Girls, stand back. I think it's time we get to the juicy bits." She took a moment to appreciate her work. Minin flashed through hand seals and struck Amy with a lightning jutsu, forcing her body to shudder and flop around on the ground as Yuno and Tsubaki moved away from her. A few seconds later, Minin released the method, knelt down, and applied some of her medical expertise to prevent Amy from fainting or even passing away too soon. She smirked and started kicking Amy hard in the face, stomach, chest, and pretty much wherever else she could as soon as she was certain that she wouldn't die too soon. When she was finished, Minin smiled savagely as she proceeded to burn Amy after going through further hand seals. They simply let Amy burn for a while, enduring the excruciating pain she was undoubtedly experiencing. Yuno smirked as she observed how badly charred Ami's body was after using a water jutsu to extinguish the flames once they were satisfied. Their message was etched into her body in a way that made it difficult for it to go away. That did not, however, imply that Amy was still to be free. No, before they took her life, they had a whole lot more in store for her. All things considered, it was a really awful day to be Amy. The following day the whole hamlet of Konohagakure was filled with the sound of an ear-piercing scream. Everyone who had been asleep that morning was obviously awakened by this scream, but that wasn't significant at the time. They helped Naruto's inherent healing factor by tending to him after his beautiful girls had finished butchering Amy. They didn't want to wait too long for him to recuperate, even though his healing factor would have eventually taken care of getting him back to his ideal health. After all, they didn't like to see him in pain. Since they would rather watch Naruto suffer and die than treat him in accordance with their Hippocratic oath, they understood that taking him to the hospital was not an option. Fucking jerks. Instead, when they were done caring for him, they brought him home and let him rest. In order to keep each other safe and healthy, this was one of the reasons they each began studying medical jutsus and kept using it. Now, when Naruto and his girls woke up, they moaned. Each of them had made the decision to stay by his side and hug all night. The blonde grinned and kissed each of his three beauties on the lips to express his love for them as he opened his eyes and saw them all with him. The girls couldn't contain their laughter as they exchanged good morning greetings. "It appears that they have discovered our surprise." Minin grinned slyly. Naruto raised an eyebrow briefly before he gave a little laugh. His girlfriends just smiled at him and he laughed more. "You made them pay for what they did, right?" he asked. "Good." Yuno wrapped her arms around him and said, "Not just the mob, but Amy and her parents too. I'm not sure if you heard her confession, but Amy was the one to rally that mob together. She was upset because you hurt Sasuke-kun." With a disappointed sigh, the blonde with whiskers shook his head. Shame. If she had simply pulled her head out of her ass, she could have been a competent kunoichi, especially under Anko-chan's and Minin-chan's guidance. "When exactly did you get her permission to call her Anko-chan?" "You've been calling her that for a while now outside of class," Minin said with a sly smile at Naruto. Naruto just replied, "When she decided to treat me to dango one day. She insisted that I start calling her Anko-chan rather than Anko-sensei. She's been rather flirtatious, too." Before they could say or do anything in response, Minin laughed and said, "That's just how she is with people she likes. Also, I may have let it slip that you're my future husband. She's curious about you, because she and I were kid of dating for a while, before I took an interest in you. We're still best friends, of course, and I think she's interested in being with you too, if we'll let her. She's dear to me, but if you three don't want to accept her into our home, that's fine too. I'm sure she'll understand, hopefully." In mild disbelief, the blonde could only shake his head and sigh. He gestured to Yuno and Tsubaki and added, "I won't object to it, especially if she's special to you. I'm more concerned about how these two will feel about it." The thought of another lady having an affair with their sweetheart made Yuno and Tsubaki frown. They didn't want to take away Minin's chance to sort of get back together with her partner, though. Unconsciously, Yuno mumbled, "Anko-sensei is kind of cool." She sighed, closed her eyes, and gave it some serious thought for a long, long time. Eventually, Yuno opened her eyes once more and met Minin's gaze. "If she joins us, she needs to meet with Deus-sama and receive his gifts. If she doesn't, then I can't accept her into our lives, agreed?" With a sly smile, Minin turned to face Tsubaki. "It's on you now, Su-chan. I had already planned to introduce her to Deus-sama and Muru-chan. Anko-chan is like us, an outcast, lonely. She puts up a tough exterior, but she's gone through much of the same kind of shit we've had to deal with growing up here. Plus, it'd be nice to help her get revenge against that snake pedo, and Deus-sama can help give her that chance. So what'd you say? Tsubaki closed her eyes and let out a sigh. Fine. But she needs to follow the rules. We share him only amongst each other. We protect each other, especially Naru-kun, with a fierce determination. Even if that means killing fellow citizens of Konoha. If she can't agree to that, then there is no place for her here with us. In agreement with that sentiment, Naruto and the other girls nodded. I think she'll come around once Deus-sama frees her from that cursed seal Orochimaru gave her. The Hokage and Jiraiya of the Sannin have fooled her long enough, claiming they'll look into a way to remove her cursed seal for her. Problem is, they aren't doing a damn thing about it. Jiraiya's a seal master, far more skilled than Orochimaru, and yet he claims he can't remove it yet. All he has to do is study it a bit and then he can remove the damn thing with a little bit of research and careful planning. No, they're using that promise to keep her loyal to the village and, more importantly, to Hiruzen. Once Deus-sama opens her eyes, she'll be more than willing to kill the Hokage if she ever needs to. Minin said with a scowl, rotten old bastards. The other three frowned when they heard this. In that instant, Tsubaki, Yuno, and Naruto all reached a consensus without exchanging words. Take her to see Deus-sama, and then explain to her what being with me entails. The three of us will go check out the crowd and gauge their responses to the message you girls left for them. It'd be suspicious if none of us showed up to see what all the fuss is about. Now, I'm going to get a shower. You girls should go to your rooms and shower as well, we've got cake blood all over us. Going to have to wash the sheets and blankets as well, now that I think about it. Naruto continued with a sigh. They had a lot of things to do today. Deus Realm. A few hours later, Anko stared up at the creature known as Deus Ex Machina and blinked a few times. This is not what she expected, damn it, when her ex-girlfriend, despite her wishes to the contrary, informed her that she would be taking her to meet someone significant. Deus merely grinned down at her and said, Welcome to my domain, Anko Midarashi. I have occasionally watched you, just out of curiosity. Before we talk, I want you to watch something, a meeting between one Hiruzen Sarutobi and Jiraiya of the Sannin. After seeing it, you will understand why you have been brought before me, I assure you. Deus then waved his hand, causing a large screen with a video playing to appear in front of them. As the Hokage and Jiraiya talked extensively about Anko and her curse mark, the snake mistress of Konoha listened and watched in dread. How they had chosen to utilize her and her services until she had no more purpose, all while holding the promise of a cure of sorts over her head. Afterward, they would treat her like the trash she is. Anko's fists became increasingly clenched as she observed this, and she eventually drew blood from the palms of her hands. However, she didn't show that she felt it. Easily seeing what Anko had done to herself, Minin took her ex-girlfriend's hands in hers and used her abilities to cure her when it was finally over. I'm sorry you had to see that, sweetheart, but we needed you to know. This way, when we accept you as our fellow sister wife, you won't hesitate to punish those that act out against us, and especially Naruto-kun. If we have to, we'll even kill the Hokage someday. Jiraiya as well. You can't hesitate when it comes to our family. Do you understand? Anko was about to respond when Deus interrupted, drawing her attention. I did not show you this to harm you, Anko Midarashi. I showed you what I did because you deserved to know the truth, and because I have an offer to make you. Anko considered what she should, and more significantly, what she wanted to say to Deus, while looking up at him. What kind of offer would that be? I'm willing to listen. After all, you just opened my eyes in a big way. Very good. Deus grinned broadly as he was speaking. I have the power to remove your curse mark. In exchange, I only ask that you be there for Naruto-kun. He will need someone of your skill to watch after him. In fact, I'm even willing to bestow upon you some of my power, and the gift of future sight as well. All you need to do is become part of their family. Do we have a deal? The snake mistress briefly blinked before asking, That's it? That's seriously all I have to do to get rid of this damn seal? Fuck yeah, I'll accept the deal. Hell, I'd give the kid my damn virginity if that's what you asked of me. Please Deus-sama, get rid of this thing and I'll serve Naruto-kun until we're both old and gray and then some. I thought you told her everything? Deus questioned, laughing to himself as he glanced at Minin. Minin rubbed the back of her head and drenched in perspiration. Yeah, I thought so too. I think in her excitement, it kinda slipped her mind. Anko asked, Huh? What am I missing here? After blinking a few times. Muru, who had been quiet all along, just giggled to catch her attention. Naruto-kun's gonna be immortal. He's going to give that gift to the girlies too. So you won't be growing old and gray, as you put it. Nope, you're gonna be happy-dappy with Naruto-kun and the girls for as long as you want to be. After a moment, Anko looked up at Deus and said, I'm ready. Just get rid of this damn thing and I'll do whatever you want. If that means moving in with Naruto-kun, joining the family, and eventually fucking his brains out, then I'm all for it. She nodded her head slowly and said, that could be pretty neat. With another laugh, the all-powerful god touched Anko's curse mark with his finger and, without warning, cleansed her of the polluted mark. More importantly, though, he made the decision to use his power to attack every other curse mark that Orochimaru had bestowed on humans, starting from Anko's. By the time he was done, no one or anything had been cursed. It's likely that Orochimaru could apply the curse markings once more, but he would be reluctant to do so in the absence of knowledge about what transpired because he would be aware that the same event might occur again. After all this time, Anko enjoyed the sensation of freedom. She eventually collapsed to her knees and started sobbing uncontrollably. After allowing her some alone time, Deus waited a few more minutes before touching the top of her head and saying, and now, my gift to you. Anko felt agony as Deus gave her some of his power in her own special form of future sight. After everything had subsided, the god decided to start explaining what her new abilities, particularly her future sight, entailed after giving her a serious look. Anko couldn't help but smile slyly as he did. All of you waiters will suffer as a result of what you did, Anko-chan. As he looked down at Sasuke Uchiha, who was now kneeling in shackles in front of the council and the Hokage, Hiruzen couldn't help but complain to himself. He wanted to give Sasuke a warning and maybe a gentle slap on the wrist, but he had committed a very serious crime, and whether he liked it or not, the situation had to be handled appropriately. But he wasn't totally present in the moment because he was thinking about the attack on Naruto the night before and the gory sight that was discovered in the wee hours of this morning. The bodies of Amy and her family stood out like warning signals to anyone who dared to oppose their executioners, Naruto, in particular. Yes, he was aware that Naruto had nothing to do with their death, but he still knew that Naruto was somehow implicated. The fact that there were scores of corpses in a neighboring alleyway didn't help either. With a heavy sigh, the elderly man dismissed those thoughts and cast a disappointed glance down at Sasuke. Sasuke Uchiha, you have been brought here before us to face very serious charges filed against you. Yesterday, you were sparring with Naruto Uzumaki. From what I have been told, you were losing that spar fair and square. Then, you attempted to murder your opponent. You almost succeeded, too. What do you have to say for yourself? That Dobi had no right to torment me like that. I'm an elite, goddammit. I should have won that spar easily. That idiot must have cheated somehow. There's no way I would have lost to him otherwise. Sasuke yelled with some hysteria. If my attack had just hit, the village would be rid of him finally and I'd be regaled as a hero of legend. I'd be a god made real. How dare everyone try to get in the way of my rise to glory? The youngster was now so disturbed that even the civilians could see it. He had obviously gone insane, and they didn't think he would ever get his sanity back, if there was any at all. The Uchiha's previous deeds and behavior had already irritated the clan leaders, but they were much more incensed at the elders and the civilians for spoiling the youngster to the point where he ended up in this state. In the interim, Danzo took a step forward and gave the young Uchiha a fierce look. Hiruzen, perhaps you should give the boy to me for reconditioning. He has clearly lost his mind and needs to be re-educated before he brings harm to someone that can't handle it. The Hokage shook his head and squinted at Danzo. Absolutely not. And that's Hokage-sama to you, you fossil. No, I say we make an example of him. Seeing as the aggrieved party is Naruto Uzumaki, I do believe Sasuke owes him some form of compensation. So I hereby decree that Sasuke Uchiha have his chakra sealed. He be locked away in the hospital's mental ward until they feel he's recovered enough to become a productive member of society. Should that fail and he comes of age, we'll extract his sperm and allow willing females to bear his progeny. Finally, everything currently belonging to Sasuke Uchiha will be given to Naruto Uzumaki. Sasuke's money, his belongings, his clan compound, all of it is going to Naruto Uzumaki. Once Sasuke has recovered and regained at least some of his lost sanity, we'll figure out what to do then. For now, gazed off into the distance replied, Jiraiya, please seal the boy's chakra and ensure he cannot awaken his Sharingan until the time is right. Sasuke thrashed around and yelled, what gives you the right to do this to me? When the Uchiha saw Jiraiya approaching him, he erupted in uncontrollable rage. I'm a Uchiha. I own this village. It's mine by right. I demand that you let me go so I can kill him. I need to kill my brother, I need to kill Naruto. Stay away from me. You cannot stop me from fulfilling my mission. Only I can kill Itachi. With a groan, Jiraiya gestured for Sasuke to be pinned by the Anbu. He then took out a brush and an inkwell and started painting elaborate seals on Sasuke. Finally, he held up a single-hand seal and activated the different seals he had just sketched on the youngster. When it was over, Sasuke let out a cry of rage and attempted to escape to murder the elderly men who had harmed him, but he lacked the strength to defend himself. Instead, as he was pulled away, he sobbed in frustration. Hiruzen scratched the bridge of his nose in exasperation and sighed when he was gone. He shook his head angrily and then glanced around the room. We should never have spoiled the boy. He's grown arrogant and selfish to the point he would never have fit in with a team of any kind. The boy seems to think he's above everyone else simply because of his clan name alone. You're all dismissed. I suggest those of you with daughters that were actively seeking the Uchiha's affections do something to set them straight. If you don't, they'll likely have to be dropped from the shinobi program. Inoichi, Kazashi, this means you need to get your daughters under control as well. Is that understood? Inoichi scratched his weary forehead and moaned. I've been trying for years now to break her out of her current mindset. I'll continue trying my hardest, Hokage-sama, but at this rate, it might be best to drop her from the academy and have her live life as a civilian. I don't know if anything can be done to correct her mindset. Kazashi also sighed and added, I'll try to talk some sense into my little girl. But her mother was so insistent that Sakura pursue Sasuke, mostly to get at his finances. She didn't used to be this way, but I guess things tend to change over time. That's unfortunate. I'd prefer not to lose those with such potential from the shinobi program. But if Sakura and Ino are unable to take their training seriously and become the powerful kunoichi I know they can be, it would be best for everyone if they remain simple civilians. I know that's not what you want to hear, you too, but it might be for the best. Hiruzen concluded. He then adjourned the meeting and he and Jiraiya departed the room. Upon returning to his office, Hiruzen approached the window and gazed down upon what he perceived to be his village. Before he spoke, he triggered the silencing seals and gestured his Anbu guards away. Jiraiya, please tell me you have some good news for me. The tall, white-haired man nodded and replied, I'm afraid not, sensei. My spies couldn't find anything, and try as I might, I couldn't figure anything out about this Muru person either. All I know for sure at this point is that she's taken an interest in Naruto and that's it. Whoever she is, she's not human, that much is for sure. I'm not entirely sure what she is. Hiruzen frowned and hammered the window until it trembled and almost shattered, but it resisted his might. He turned around and frowned at his student, saying, What about the seal? Can you seal away her powers or something at the very least? Damn it. That's not what I wanted to hear, Jiraiya. Jiraiya shook his head and scowled. If I knew more about her, I could probably come up with some way to bring her down, sure. But she's a complete enigma. She can come and go as she pleases and her powers are something else. You experienced them firsthand, so you would know what she's capable of better than I would, he replied with a shrug of his shoulders. The glass cracked around the point of impact as the third hammered his fist against it once more. Fine then. What about those bodies? Do you know who's responsible for killing so many people? They left a clear message to everyone that Naruto Uzumaki is off limits now, or else. I want the ones behind that attack caught and destroyed. Jiraiya let out a sigh and sagged humorously. I'm afraid there's no clues on that either. My spies are generally focused on outside threats, not ones inside the village. So I'm afraid there's very little information for me to go off of. All I know for sure is that whoever is butchering people like Iruka and that Amy girl are not just pissed off, but they're very defensive of Naruto as well. I think you should make an announcement to the village and tell them seriously this time that Naruto is not to be harmed. Anyone that tries should be executed, no exceptions. If nothing else, it should hopefully stop the killings for a while. If you don't do something, the body count will just continue to rise and we'll soon have more corpses than living, breathing villagers. Hiruzen shook his head and frowned. Naruto was meant to be humbled. He was meant to be loyal to me and me alone. My plans are derailing because somebody out there actually cares about that thing's well-being. No, Jiraiya, I will not do as you suggest. I'll just have to think of some kind of plan. I can't have Naruto falling out of my clutches into the hands of this Muru or whoever she serves. If I have to, I'll apply seals to the boy so he can never question me. Nobody can stop me and my ambitions. You've changed, sensei. You never used to be like this. What changed? Jiraiya remarked with a deep scowl. With a sneer, the elderly Hokage looked at his pupil. I never wanted to take this position back, Jiraiya. I was perfectly content to leave everything to Minato, but he had to fall in love with that woman and give birth to that creature. My wife is dead because of that thing. Then there's the councils breathing down my neck. I'm tired of it, Jiraiya. I name you my successor and retire right now, but you're too much of a coward to take the position from me. You'd much rather peep on women in the hot springs than aid me. Sure, we agree on a number of things, but as far as I'm concerned, you're just another failure, just like Team 7 has always been. It's a curse, and a bad one at that. You've proven that you're just as worthless to me as you've always been. Unable to get any damn information that I asked you to dig up. Get lost. After giving Hiruzen a stern look, the white-haired Sannin turned and walked out the door. He was furious that his sensei had declared him useless, but he was unable to deny it. Hiruzen was correct. He was incapable of performing even the most basic tasks correctly. He had nothing really to his advantage but his books and the toads. Even though he had a few good techniques under his belt, they weren't really stunning. Having to acknowledge that reality to himself annoyed him. However, Hiruzen had no right to insult him in this way and toss everything back in his face. Perhaps it was time to begin making his own changes. The following day, when the Hokage interrupted the lecture that Anko and Minin were giving the class, no one knew what to think. Hokage-sama, to what do we owe the honor? Anko thought, turning to face him. Hiruzen dismissed her with a wave before focusing on the lesson. An announcement will be made later today, but I wanted to come and inform all of you personally about this matter. As you know well enough by now, Sasuke Uchiha attempted to murder one of your classmates, Naruto Uzumaki. When we, the council and myself, confronted him about his behavior, Sasuke revealed to us exactly how deranged and psychotic he has become. Sasuke will no longer be participating in class alongside you. His chakra has been sealed and he has been locked away in the psych ward at the hospital. Before you question me, no, he is not allowed visitors. Sasuke is far too unstable to allow such a thing, the Hokage said, letting out a deep sigh and massaging his forehead for a while. Anyways, there are a few reasons I'm here telling you all this. The first problem I'd like to address is the fangirls. I'm giving you a proposition. Either take your chosen career choice seriously and work towards bettering yourselves so you can truly become the best kunoichi of your age group, or quit the damn academy. All your dieting to look pretty for Sasuke and the other boys ends now. The stupid catfights end now. Arguing with one another about who's going to win over the boy of their dreams ends now. From now on, you either take this seriously or you can walk out that door right fucking now. I'm not going to pass a bunch of fangirls that would rather wait for their Prince Charming to rescue them than fight. If you somehow became genin, you wouldn't last a day out in the big, wide world. You'd be lucky if they'd just let you die. If not that, then you'd best prepare yourselves, because there's a good chance you will be broken and sold off as slaves to the highest bidder. And in case that wasn't clear enough, if you don't shape up, there's a good chance you'll be raped and sold to someone as a sixth slave to be used, abused, and thrown away like yesterday's trash once they no longer have a use for you. Am I clear? Hiruzen explained, not willing to take any more crap from these fucking fangirls. Too astonished to talk, everyone nodded. There was stillness in the room for a few moments. No one was brave enough to speak. Hiruzen eventually looked at all of the fangirls in the room and arched an eyebrow. Well, I'm waiting. Make your decision. Now, will you stay and take this seriously? Or will you get up and walk out that door? I'm not going to ask you again. Most of the fangirls quickly left the classroom because they were unwilling to complete the tasks at hand, particularly if it meant they could no longer pursue their ideal partner. Others, like Sakura and Ino, remained, but it was questionable if they would truly take their training seriously going forward. Hiruzen, Anko, and Minin were clearly planning retaliation against Naruto for what had happened to their beloved Sasuke based just on their appearance. Hiruzen sighed in disappointment and shook his head. Those of you that stayed, Sasuke was in the wrong. Naruto did nothing to warrant your hatred of him. If I hear of you trying to exact some kind of revenge against him for winning a simple spar, you'll wish you had quit now while you had the chance. In the end, I'm the one that chose to punish Sasuke. Do you really think you could exact revenge upon me if I gave you the chance? Immediately, the fangirls gave a negative shake of their heads. Good. Now, Hiruzen scowled briefly as he looked at Naruto, uncertain of how he and everyone else would react to the news he was going to give. Choosing to let it go, he stated, everything Sasuke owned is now yours, Naruto Uzumaki. All of his money, his clan compound, his house, hell, even all the jutsu scrolls you can find there. Everything and anything he owned is yours to do with as you please. And because I don't trust certain people to leave you and your new compound alone, I'll post Anbu on guard duty to keep people out. I suggest you find some way to permanently protect your property, however. There are some who would stop at nothing to get what's in the Uchiha compound. Naruto's eyes went wide, and he was immediately unable to talk. He opened and closed his lips several times, as if it were a fish. It took him a while to ask, "Can I see it now? I'd prefer to take a look at my new property and find some way to protect it from people as soon as possible." "Yes, Naruto-kun. You are excused from today's classes to go and inspect the Uchiha compound. You don't have a problem with that, do you, Hokage-sama?" Minin said with a cruel sneer on her face as Hiruzen scowled deeply and started to decline. "You old bastard, we won't allow you to deny Naruto what is rightfully his." "Definitely not, Naruto. You are ordered to stay in class and participate." "I'll do it," the Hokage yelled, frowning. Naruto got up, threw the Hokage off, and vanished to check out his new home. After he left, Hiruzen tightened his fists and got ready to pursue him in order to obtain what he desired before Naruto could obtain anything. "Why are you so insistent on keeping Naruto-kun from what's rightfully his?" said young Yuno Gasai, one of the students, narrowing her eyes at him. Minin-sensei already said he was free to leave. "Do you have a problem with him or something, Hokage-sama?" At this point, the other pupils started whispering to one another, growing increasingly wary of the elderly Hokage. "Oh no, Naruto, damn you, I'll take what's rightfully mine." Anko gave her girlfriend a single nod while maintaining eye contact. All four of Naruto's future wives heard the message clearly. Hiruzen, the third Hokage of Konoha, had to perish. The Uchiha compound. When Naruto reached the compound that was now his, he scowled. He sensed that some people were already inside the property, trying to steal anything they could, but he could also see a couple of Anbu protecting the compound's entrance. He raised his hands and, as though he were firing a trigger, squeezed his thumbs down and aimed his fingers at the Anbu. He smirked evilly and slid past into the compound when holes emerged in their chests, directly through their hearts. He wasted little time in pursuing and dismantling each of the looters individually. They were all dressed in blank masks that looked like Anbu masks. This made him frown, and he carefully examined one of the masks. He dismissed it and proceeded to slaughter the remaining intruders before dragging their bodies out onto the street and away from his new compound. "Root? Deus showed me these people before, Danzo Shimura." Then he returned to the Uchiha complex and concentrated on the strength that Deus had given him. In an instant, a strong barrier extended, covering the whole Uchiha compound. The Hokage and more of his Anbu arrived and attempted to enter, but were thwarted by the strong but imperceptible barrier that now protected his property, so this again happened just in time. Naruto held up the mask he had previously removed from one of the agents as he stepped up to the edge of the barrier, being careful to stay inside its protective perimeter. "I found these assholes trying to loot my new property. I don't take kindly to people trying to take what's mine, Hokage-sama. I don't care if they were under your command or not. Now, if you don't mind, I think I'm going to explore the compound and see what I can find. Have fun with the corpses." Naruto turned to leave, but Hiruzen frowned at him. "Naruto, you will be punished for killing my Anbu. I don't know how you did it, but..." Naruto turned to face the Hokage and arched an inquisitive eyebrow. "Those Anbu you had guarding the compound? When I got here, they were already dead. All those people with the blank masks, on the other hand? I killed them. This compound is mine now and I wasn't about to let anyone steal from me. But go ahead, punish me if you feel like you absolutely have to. Good luck trying to prove my involvement, however. After all, how could a 10-year-old kill trained Anbu?" The Hokage scowled even more and attempted to approach Naruto, but Naruto's barrier sent him flying back. "This isn't over, Naruto. I'll get what's mine. Just you wait and see," he yelled as he stumbled to his feet, giving Naruto a vile gaze. Before venturing within the property, Naruto just flipped the Hokage off. When he was gone, Hiruzen tightened his hands and looked at the compound. "You brat, damn you. You, your pals, the jerks who are standing up for you, and everyone else. Damn you. This will cost you all." After 2 nights the girls would have acted on their feelings sooner, but they understood that if they were to defeat Hiruzen Sarutobi, they needed to plan. In addition to being a very competent Kage in his own right, he was nearly always protected by the Anbu. Whether they liked to acknowledge it or not, Hiruzen still had that spark in him despite his advanced age. But Anko and Minin observed the Hokage sleeping well in his room at home. They were positive that he was merely pretending to sleep at this point and already knew they were there. But that's what they were expecting. They had transformed themselves into enemy shinobi from a rival town by using their abilities. They were supposed to be the lure that drew the clansmen and guardians of the Hokage away. Actually, the intention was for old-fashioned Muru to murder the Hokage herself. Yesterday, the girls went to see Deus and Muru-chan and asked Muru for help in getting rid of Hiruzen Sarutobi for good. She could easily murder the old bastard because of her strength. However, they also needed to locate a good replacement for him. Jiraiya of the Sannin would probably bitch and complain that he didn't want the job when the council tried to name him the new Hokage. Therefore, upon Enko Midarashi's request, Deus had used his abilities to find Tsunade Senju. Deus had found the stray Sannin and dispatched Naruto to try to persuade her to come back to the village. Naruto was currently there, attempting to persuade Tsunade to come back by chatting to her. However, a lot of extremely talented shinobi are now attacking Minin and Anko. They wanted just this. Minin held out a single-handed seal and smiled sadistically as she led them away from Hiruzen's house. Boom! She said, laughing to herself as flames shot into the air as several locations in Konoha erupted out of nowhere. The pair then vanished while their assailants were unconscious, and as they were safe, they removed their disguises. Both of them were shocked to see how much the community had been destroyed. Making sure to play her part correctly, Anko captured one of the Anbu who had been pursuing them and said, "What the hell's going on? Are we under attack?" The Anbu shook her head and glanced between Anko and her girlfriend. "I don't know. We caught enemy shinobi targeting Hokage-sama, and when we left in pursuit of them, all these explosions started all over the village. And now we've lost the enemy shinobi. Damn." Minin gazed at the woman doubtfully. The Anbu widened her eyes behind her mask and ran back towards the Hokage's house, praying fervently that everything was okay. "Seriously? You left Hokage-sama undefended? What if they circled back to try and finish the job?" she asked. After she was gone, Minin and Anko exchanged a cruel grin before heading out to assist in the hunt for the enemy shinobi. "Now is too late for you idiots to take any action. The elderly man has passed away." Anko laughed as she pondered. "You old bastard, you got it right." The Hiruzen, the old Hokage, opened his eyes and gazed serenely at the ceiling just before the blasts shook the settlement. "You can come out now. I know you're there." The childlike form of Muru emerged from the shadows. "Your senses are as sharp as ever, Mr. Hokage. I assume you know why I'm here then?" she added, grinning at him. Hiruzen nodded as he stated, "You're here to kill me. Most likely for my transgressions against young Naruto-kun. I won't make it easy for you, Muru." She just lifted a hand and caught the fire, then compressed it into a little ball as Hiruzen stood up in bed and spit a huge fireball at her from his mouth. She gave him a cruel grin and tossed it up and down in her left hand, saying, "Shame on you, Mr. Hokage. You should have given up. It would have made your death so much quicker." The elderly Hokage launched another strike, but as previously, she blew a hole through his knee, causing him to scream. "Burn." She then pressed the compacted ball of fire to his throat. The Hokage's body was instantly set on fire by his own method, and he started to scream in pain. She wasn't quite done with him, though. So she snapped her fingers, extinguishing the flames, and a scorched Hiruzen Sarutobi sat on his knees in front of her, scalding tears running down his burnt cheeks. "Just, kill me." Muru started to play with the elderly guy, saying, "Soon, Mr. Hokage. Soon. For now, I'm going to play with you until you're all broken inside. Let's make you into a pretzel." Hiruzen had died from his wounds by the time she finished, unable to bear it any longer. The old guy was dead now, so Muru retreated into the shadows and watched Asuma enter the room to see how his father was doing. This was the first time they had recognized he was being attacked, because of her magic, which prevented anyone outside that room from hearing the screams. They cried, screamed in indignation, and promised to exact revenge on the person who had murdered their beloved family member in Hokage when they saw the corpse of one Hiruzen Sarutobi. Giggling quietly to herself, Muru vanished and joined Naruto. Naruto was genuinely clueless about his location and the distance between him and Konoha. All he knew was that he was looking up at an extremely attractive woman with blonde hair right now. Convincing her to return to Konoha as its new Hokage was his responsibility. For the last 30 minutes, he had been speaking with her, attempting to clarify his predicament and assist her in resolving her issues so that she might return and assume her role as a legitimate Hokage. It wouldn't be so nasty and corrupt. And that's my story. So you see, Tsunade-sama, we could really use your help. I was told you didn't want to go back to Konoha, but you're the only one we can trust. The third Hokage did some evil things and tried to use me. Jiraiya can't be trusted to have our best interests in mind. You're honestly the only one we could really depend on to lead the village back down the right path. Naruto clarified, praying fervently that his words to her. You're truly the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki? Tsunade remarked after a moment of frowning. When he nodded, she sighed and added, I loved Kushina like one would a daughter. I feared you had died, Naruto-kun, but... Gazing up into her eyes, Naruto scowled. You won't do it? The tall woman looked sad and said, I wouldn't make a very good Hokage. I'm afraid of blood. If I can't even handle the mere sight of blood, how can I possibly keep an entire village safe? How can I lead when I have such a stupid fear? I can't even help people anymore, I'm so afraid of it. As a medic, I should be able to handle it, but... The blonde gave an understanding nod. She nodded in agreement, so he replied, I see. Well, I can help you through your fear. You're a medic, right? He grinned and said, then you'll simply have to get over your fear the quick way. Naruto drew a kunai he kept concealed on his person and proceeded to slit his forearm all the way up to his elbow before Tsunade could question him about it. He quickly proceeded to stab himself in the stomach with his good hand while writhing in agony. Then he smiled up at her, dropping the bloodied kunai. He uttered the words, might, wanna hurry, before he fell to the ground and eventually passed out from the extreme pain he was experiencing. When Tsunade saw what she had just witnessed, her eyes widened in fear. She was closing in on herself, trembling and crying, when Muru entered the room. The eternal being's eyes widened in fear as she looked down at her favorite person in the universe. Seeing Tsunade, she said, what the hell are you waiting for? Heal him already. If you don't snap to it, I'll take care of it. He's giving you this opportunity to prove yourself. Quickly falling to her knees, Tsunade began attempting to heal Naruto with shaking hands while still crying. But she was having a hard time of it since she was panicking so much. Shizune, her aide, attempted to rescue her boss, but Muru intervened. She has to overcome this on her own or she won't learn and get past her fears. If she can't do it, then I will. Shizune gave a hesitant nod of comprehension. That did not preclude her from offering her master words of support, though. Tsunade-sama, you can do this. Just calm down, take a breath, and get to work. Hurry. After trembling for a while longer, Tsunade took a deep breath to help her relax. She then went on to begin mending Naruto's wounds that he had caused himself. After she was done treating him, she sat down on her bed and tried to relax by taking deep, steady breaths. Damn it. Why would he do that to himself? That was way too dangerous. Because he trusted you to do the right thing, Muru said. He had a feeling that you wouldn't just let him die. Shizune shook her head and scowled bitterly. There had to have been better ways to go about it, though. Murmured and replied, the slow and steady way was, unfortunately, not the way to go this time. We need Tsunade to return to Konoha, whether she likes it or not. We need a Hokage we can trust. I just came here from killing the third for his transgressions against Naruto-kun. He had become corrupt and even evil to an extent. Something had to be done. Why you killed Sensei? What the hell did he do to warrant such a thing? Tsunade exclaimed, her eyes widening. Muru sighed quietly and took his time telling Tsunade everything. So will you return? If I have to, I can drag you kicking and screaming back to the village. But I won't do that. I want you to return by your own choice. If you don't, well, we'll just have to figure out what to do then, she said, glancing directly into the blonde's eyes once she was done. Who do you think would take over if I were to refuse? Tsunade questioned with a heavy scowl. Murmured and replied, they would try to get Jiraiya to take up the mantle of Hokage. But you know how he is. He'd rather stick to his vices, and having to sit behind a desk all day would ruin his research opportunities. He has no interest in being the Hokage. So you tell me, who's left that could take the position? I'll give you a hint. He's a really bad guy that's done a lot of bad things. It was Shizune who responded. Danzo Shimura. He'd ruined Konoha. It would never be the same again. You have to go back, Tsunade-sama. You can't let Danzo take the village your grandfather built and destroy it from within. Tsunade grinned and replied, I don't really have much of a choice in the matter. If Danzo were left to his own devices, he'd wage war on every other nation until either he and Konoha were destroyed, or worse yet, every other village was crushed and serving him. We cannot allow him to become Hokage. Miss, how fast can you get us to Konoha? Muru sighed and replied, I'm Muru, or Muru-chan for short, and I can get us there instantly if you want. But don't you want to talk to the fire daimyo first? Tsunade nodded her head and added, Danzo will try to use his influence to shift things in his favor now that Sensei is dead. It's best if we don't give him the opportunity to sway people to his side. The faster we act, the better. As for the daimyo, I'll talk with him and his wife later. She said, all right, then, one Muru ride to Konoha in progress, choo-choo. And then she and everyone else teleported back to Konohagakure. Room for council meetings. The third Hokage's death and the deaths of everyone else trapped in the village's numerous explosions caused a commotion inside the council. In general, everything had gone straight to hell, with several companies being demolished, an orphanage catching fire, and the third's visage on the Hokage monument being destroyed. They were now debating what to do and who should be in charge. In their avarice, the citizens had attempted to seize power in a number of ways, but Homura, Kaharu, and the clan leaders were obstructing their efforts at every turn. Danzo, on the other hand, was only smirking wickedly while standing back. The elderly Warhawk was aware that this was his finest opportunity to take the Hokage throne for himself at last. He would become the new Hokage if he could use Shisui's Sharingan to influence the Fire Daimyo. At last, everything appeared to be working out for him. Then she showed up. Shizune, Tsunade Senju, Naruto Uzumaki, and their pet pig, Tauntaun, all appeared in the middle of the room with Muru. Muru waved a finger at Danzo and smiled, looking directly into his eyes. Boom, Mr. Bad Guy. Danzo was about to respond, bewildered by her words and actions, when he felt Shisui's implanted Sharingan detonate inside his skull. He screamed in pain, gripped his bleeding face, and used his only eye to gaze down at the girl. She came before him and tore off his bandages before he could stop her, showing everyone exactly what he had been concealing. Before she burst out laughing as she methodically crushed Danzo's deformed arm and all the Sharingan it held, Muru remarked, "Someone's been a very naughty boy. Naughty boys should be punished." After finishing, she gave Danzo a questioning glance before stating, "You've done lots of bad things, Mr. Danzo, but you need to go bye-bye now." Muru killed him before he could stop her, leaving him without even having time to respond. Tsunade grinned at everyone and said, "Well, now that he's been taken care of, I think it's time we all had a nice, long chat. First, I'd like to say this. I'm going to be the new Hokage. It's only fitting that I take the title, after all. If you have a problem with it, you can kiss my great ass. I won't tolerate any more shit from any of you. Hiruzen, my old sensei, was an asshole and got what he deserved. Danzo could never have been allowed to become Hokage, as his ideas were too radical, too extreme to be put into practice. Jiraiya would rather write his smut than take over as your new Hokage. So here I am. You're going to do as I say from now on. And for my first order of business, I'm declaring Naruto-kun off limits to all of you. From now on, I'm putting a new law into practice and I'll enforce it without hesitation. Naruto Uzumaki is not to be harmed, harassed, threatened, or generally just treated like dirt from now on. Anyone going against this order will suffer the consequences. Unlike Hiruzen, I'll actually enforce the law, and that means you and anyone else involved will die. You can't do that. What the hell gives you the right to make up such a ridiculous law? Said one of the civilians as he got to his feet. What gives you the right to question me, you little ant? What gives you the right to try and kill a little boy? Do tell me if you have a good reason for it, the blonde said with a sadistic sneer. Can't you see it for what it is? It's the goddamn demon given flesh and bone. Fourth Sama would have wanted us to adhere to his wishes and to kill the damn thing, said the same individual. I see. So you're a fool then. Anbu, take his head and mount it on a pole in the village somewhere. I want everyone to be reminded of what it means to cross me in Naruto-kun. Is that understood? Tsunade glared at the man and said venomously. To the surprise of most of the council, Anbu swiftly materialized in front of Tsunade before following orders. After finishing that, Tsunade gave everyone a charming smile and said, "We'll get in touch with the Fire Daimyo and resolve everything tomorrow. In the meantime, go home and rest. We have a busy period ahead of us." They all just nodded and went back to their houses. After the recent chaos in the community, they fervently hoped that nothing more would go wrong. When Sasuke tried to murder Naruto, they decided they had had enough. But from there, things only got worse. Damn it, they were going to sleep, and they were exhausted. After they had left, Tsunade turned to face Naruto and gathered him in an embrace. "Don't scare me like that again, Naruto-kun. From now on, I'll always be here for you. You won't have to suffer anymore. That's a promise." "Thanks, Tsunade-chan," he muttered, slipping into her hug. The blonde gave him a gentle pat on the top of his head and murmured, "You're welcome, Naruto-kun." She then took his hand and escorted him back to his house, giggling at the loving ending. "Good night, Naruto-kun." Make sure to get plenty of sleep. He said, okay. Bye-bye Tsunade-chan, before yawning wearily and going inside his house. Tsunade turned to face Muru after he had disappeared, saying, you have a lot to tell me about what's been going on since I've been gone. I need to know everything, including what the hell you are exactly. Muru sighed and replied, okay. But you're going to be confused at first. Boot, I think Deus-sama can help you out. If you really want to, I can take you to see him after we've finished talking. He's really big and nice. Ah well, let's go have that chat at my old home. Tsunade merely nodded, and the three of them left for the Senju complex to have a private conversation. The following afternoon, as Tsunade gazed up at the enormous object in front of her, she couldn't help but blink. She hadn't been sure what to anticipate when Muru had told her about Deus Ex Machina. Now that she was actually seeing him, she knew that even in her wildest thoughts, she could never have envisioned anything like this. Okay, you're huge. What exactly am I doing here though? Deus just smiled at her and said, I simply want to ask you to do a favor for me. If you are going to take the role of Hokage, then I want you to look after the well-being of my friend, Naruto Uzumaki. Protect him. Make him happy. He deserves to feel loved and appreciated. I don't care if it's familial love, romantic love, or even just the love one feels for their friends. Just be there for the youngling. If you agree to do that, I can grant you a boon, of sorts. What exactly did you have in mind? I already planned to look after Naruto-kun anyway, but I'll listen to you, the curvaceous blonde said, glancing up at him with skepticism. The powerful deity just laughed and said, I can restore your youth to you. You will be at your prime once more, and you will never age again. My gift to you will make you immortal, just as it has for Naruto-kun and his loved ones. More than that, in order to aid you, I will grant you your own version of a gift called Future Sight. You'll be able to view the future in some way, just like all of those dearest to little Naruto-kun. I warn you though that if you accept this gift, you may very well outlive those you cherish, such as Shizune and Taunton. Couldn't you do the same thing for Shizune, at the very least? Tsunade scowled. I could, but the question is, why should I? You are soon to be one of Naruto-kun's guardians, whereas she is strictly loyal to you. I need those that will care for Naruto-kun to look out for him above all others. I value loyalty and compassion. In the end, it is up to her if she proves herself worthy of my gifts. For now, I will give you the time you need to come up with an answer. Just don't take too long. When you're ready to give me an answer, speak with Naruto-kun and he will bring you to me. Although Tsunade scowled, she gave a sympathetic nod. Before letting Muru take her back to Konohagakure, she remarked, of course, Deus-sama. Thank you. Deus glanced down at the shadows that hung over one part of the room as soon as she was gone. What do you think? Will she accept the deal as it has been presented to her, or will she decline? Asked he. A pretty attractive woman with long red hair, violet eyes, and a playful gleam in her eyes emerged from the shadows. She might try to persuade you into adding Shizune and Taunton to the deal. I know you're simply testing her resolve, but I can't see you excluding them, Deus-sama. The woman was giggling as she said, Tsunade-chan is going to be ecstatic when you change her. She'll finally be able to marry and have the kids she's always wanted. With whom, however, remains to be seen. I still want to see if Shizune can show the same level of dedication to young Naruto-kun as she does to Tsunade. If she cannot, then I may not bestow upon her my gifts. Deus was staring at the woman and questioned, so when will you be ready to reveal yourself to him? The mother nodded her head and replied, not for a while yet, I'm afraid. There are still too many issues to take care of throughout the world that would seek to harm my baby boy. Once I feel we're both ready, I'll talk to him. I just hope he won't be too upset. Only time will tell, Kushina Uzumaki. I just hope you don't keep him waiting for too much longer. He may have the others in his life right now, but he could still use his mother's love. Don't deny him that much. Kushina, as he was now called, could only nod in comprehension. Very well, Deus-sama. If that is all, I'll be leaving now. Deus merely nodded and watched as she once again vanished into the darkness. Upon her departure, the deity raised a screen and waved his hand to observe young Naruto. Naruto-kun, everything will be fine. If nothing else, I swear to you that. 1 week has passed since Tsunade returned and Hiruzen Sarutobi was killed. Word of what had happened took a while to reach the fire daimyo, who was only now making his way to Konoha to talk to Tsunade. Tsunade had started cleaning the home, so to speak, while she waited for him to bring his ass to the hamlet. She first had Shizune and a few people she trusted investigate the accounts of the 3 elders and each of the civilian council members. She also checked the financial accounts of Kushina and Minato. She was enraged by the anomalies, particularly because they had been embezzling money from Minato's and Naruto's parents' bank accounts. No regard for the deceased and their descendants. Typical as hell. The civilian council and the two surviving elders were instructed by Tsunade to refund the money they had stolen, along with interest. She had actually torn off Homura's head and put it on a pole outside the Hokage tower when he attempted to object. Everyone in the village soon realized that Tsunade and Naruto were not to be messed with. Thus, the civilians and Koharu had started to repay their debts, if reluctantly. The recently appointed Hokage had also studied her sensei's black book, which was filled with his falsehoods and secrets. She soon discovered that he had made multiple attempts to enter Naruto's legitimate residence and had even used deceit and bribery to try to get the youngster to sign over all of his belongings. Fortunately, Naruto had been astute enough to doubt everything and hadn't first signed away what was properly his. Furthermore, she discovered that Hiruzen and Jiraiya had orchestrated specific incidents in order to control Tsunade in their own ways. Jiraiya had manipulated events to ensure that her beautiful Dan would suffer a terrible demise. He couldn't bear the thought of someone else, plowing her crops, as it were, and wanted Tsunade all to himself. Conversely, Hiruzen had contributed to the deaths of both Dan and Naoki. After all, their aspirations for their future role as Hokage were lofty and conflicted with Hiruzen's intentions. They therefore needed to be eradicated, to use Hiruzen's own words. She was so enraged by something else she discovered that she intended to erase Hiruzen's tenure as Hokage from Konoha's history. As long as she had her way, he would remain a black stain on the pages of Konoha's glorious past. Together, Hiruzen and Danzo had made sure that Uzushiobukure and its enduring ally, the Uzumaki clan, were destroyed. All because they were unable to tolerate the Uzumaki clan's rapid rise to prominence. They couldn't tolerate the notion that their village was going to be dubbed the sixth great shinobi community. Therefore, they had betrayed their allies and made sure that everyone there would die and be destroyed out of jealousy and resentment. Additionally, Tsunade had started putting the medic program she had always envisioned into action. In order to save more lives while on missions, each team was now training one member in the art of medical ninjutsu. She also made it possible for interested individuals who were still at the academy to learn the art. She could simply put one medic nin on each squad to increase the survival rate, so it would undoubtedly help when it came time to choose the teams. Shizune had also been told about the contract Deus had offered her by the new Hokage. She told the black-haired physician that she was thinking about accepting the bargain, but she couldn't guarantee that Deus would treat her the same way until Shizune could swear loyalty to Naruto and serve him instead of just herself. Shizune found this challenging because she had vowed to serve Tsunade and Tsunade alone for the longest period of time. Naruto was still very little, and she hardly knew him. However, she pledged to think it over carefully. But now was no time to think about any of it. The fire daimyo was seated at his assigned seat in the meeting room with Tsunade and the council. Looking him in the eye, Tsunade replied, "I'm going to get straight to the point, Daimyo-sama. I'm taking the position of 5th Hokage. I'm only speaking with you about this out of formality, because whether you like it or not, I'm taking control of this village and running things my way from now on. Will you support me, or will you choose to go against me?" Calmly gazing into her eyes, the daimyo raised an eyebrow in interest. "I find it strange that almost immediately after Hiruzen died, you appeared in the village and decided to take over in his place. It makes me question if you had played some part in his death. I heard about the foreign shinobi that had infiltrated the village, but they were never found. I suspect that they were not enemy shinobi at all and were instead Konoha shinobi in disguise to try and fool the people of this fair village. I suspect that Hiruzen Sarutobi was murdered by one of this village's citizens. What do you have to say to that, Tsunade?" Tsunade just replied, "Whether that's true or not, and whether I had any involvement in his death, is inconsequential at this time. As far as I'm concerned, Hiruzen was served his just desserts for all of his crimes and is now rotting in hell because of it. If I was here, I'd have killed him myself, and you didn't answer my question. Will you support me, or will you choose to work against me? I can tell you right now I'm not afraid of going against you, Daimyo-sama. I do not fear you or your guardians. I'm going to do what's right for this village as its new Hokage. That's a simple fact. I would prefer we work together to better Konoha and its relations to the other nations and villages. But if you do try to get in the way of my ambitions, you'd best be prepared for a fight, because I will have my way." The daimyo narrowed his eyes at Tsunade and growled, "You'd better watch how you talk to me, Tsunade. I will not take threats against me lightly, not even you could challenge my army." I will admit that you would make a much better choice for Hokage than a certain other Sannin we all know of. Jiraiya would not make for a good Hokage, and there is no way I would contact Orochimaru to take up the position after all he's done. So I will not oppose you taking the role of Hokage. However, if you make any more threats against me, I will remove you and appoint someone else to the position, even if they are not quite as capable as you are. So watch yourself, Tsunade. The blonde woman couldn't resist giving him a cunning grin. So long as we understand one another and can work together, no threats will be needed. No action will be needed. Tell me something though, did you know everything Hiruzen had been up to? What he's done? The fire daimyo said, and if I did, what would you do, without even flinching? Please just answer the question, daimyo-sama. Call it curiosity, if you'd like, Tsunade asked. Seeking to ascertain precisely what he could anticipate from Tsunade, the daimyo gazed into her eyes. He eventually made the decision to just tell the woman the truth. I'm the one that gave the approval for Hiruzen to do most of what he did. Even if I hadn't, he would have gone through with his crimes anyways, I'm sure. This means that the deaths of Dan and Naoki were approved of by me as well. But, you are in no position to exact vengeance against me, Tsunade. You'll simply have to deal with the fact that I am untouchable and leave me be. Tsunade closed her eyes, her face shadowed by her hair and the lighting. Everyone was initially unsure of how to interpret what they had heard. Neither did they know what Tsunade would do. Then she gave a finger snap. The fire daimyo's skull exploded and his body fell to the ground in an instant. With a malicious smile, Tsunade looked back up and said, "Thank you for being honest with me, you foolish son of a bitch. Your wife, and eventually your son, will make suitable replacements for you, pig." At what had just happened to their nation's leader, everyone's eyes widened in terror. Shikaku felt a chilly chill go through him as he glanced at Tsunade. Oh no, this is really problematic, she won't take crap from anyone. Shibi adjusted his sunglasses and scowled. Was that wise, Hokage-sama? He was our country's leader, after all. And killing him might have severe repercussions. Taking out a sealing scroll, Tsunade unsealed the documents inside and handed them to Shibi, saying, simply, I will not tolerate a corrupt person in charge of our country or this village. The daimyo's wife is much better suited to the position anyway, at least for the time being. She's always been a nice woman with a good head on her shoulders. Besides, the man admitted that he gave the approval for Hiruzen's evil deeding. Go ahead and have a look. I made copies for everyone here. Trust me, that man was not one who should have remained in power. The eyes of the different council members widened in dread as they read over everything. Heishi furrowed his brow and balled his hands. What is wrong with these people? My brother, he died for their schemes. Goddammit. The 12 guardian ninja were encircling Tsunade, their weapons at the ready, as the council members continued to go through the evidence. With a calm gaze, Tsunade said, I suggest you all return to the capital and inform the daimyo's family of what has transpired here. Unless you'd like a sample of my new abilities as well? I have no problem killing all of you as I did him. However, I'd prefer it if you protected the daimyo's wife and child. You do still have a duty to keep them safe as well. So be good little boys and girls and shoo. One of the guardian ninja moved forward and posed a question that was on everyone's mind as Tsunade started to wave her hand dismissively at them. What kind of technique did you use to kill our lord? How did you kill him without ever touching him? Tsunade stood up and approached the guardian ninja who spoke, grabbing his weapon and running herself through it. The 5th Hokage simply grinned at them and said, you wouldn't understand it even if I explained it. Suffice it to say, my new friend has bestowed upon me some wonderful powers. Even better, my youth has been truly restored to me. I can have a family that I've dreamed of for so long because of him. And, their eyes widened in terror at the implications when she didn't scream out in agony or hell, die. I cannot die. Fighting me here would be suicide for all of you. Now I suggest you run along home and guard the new daimyo. Shoo shoo. For the moment, the 12 guardian ninja considered their alternatives, but ultimately, self-preservation prevailed, and they hurried out of the room to leave Konoha and head to the capital. Before he and the others left the room, one of them paused to pick up the body of the dead daimyo. When she was once more alone herself with the council, Tsunade noticed that her wound was healing quickly. Her clothes were now stained with blood, and that was the only thing that really disturbed her. She sat down again and looked about at everyone, who was staring at her in fear. Oh pooey. Looks like I've ruined my clothes. Oh well, at least my point has been made. Don't stop, continue reading. Hiruzen kept such a detailed account of all of his crimes. Why bad guys feel the need to keep such information where others can find it is so strange to me. I don't think I'll ever understand it. Still, the point remains that I will not tolerate corruption from anyone. As you can see, I won't hesitate to kill anyone that goes against me, even our country's daimyo. I do hope my point has finally been made? Everyone nodded hastily and started closely reviewing the evidence once more. Tsunade couldn't help but smile as they did, giving Deus a mental thank you for his amazing gifts. She closed her eyes and sang to herself joyfully as she started to use her future sight as she waited for the others to finish reading everything. Hers operated in a rather straightforward manner. It was modeled after the crystal ball that Hiruzen had used so frequently. She could see what was going on with someone she wanted to check on by simply focusing on that person. She thus concentrated on Naruto at the moment to check on him. Well, Naruto-kun. When you get old enough to join me, I can't wait. A family and marriage sound good. Naruto looked around and scowled in perplexity. He felt certain that someone was observing him, but he was unsure of who it was. He dismissed it after some time and returned his mind to the written exam he was taking. Even though it wasn't hard, he was still afraid of making a mistake and disappointing his beautiful future brides. The fact that he was being treated worse than ever by people like Kiba and Sakura didn't help either. With Sasuke no longer around, Kiba was essentially attempting to take over as the group's new alpha male and domineering figure. He attempted to make himself appear as large as his ego by tormenting Naruto. Although Naruto was able to ignore him with ease, his persistent attempts were somewhat annoying. Sakura, however, held Naruto responsible for all the mishaps. She made the decision to devote all of her energy on frightening Naruto now that her beloved Sasuke-kun was gone. At least she made an effort. He once struck her so hard in the throat that she passed out from a lack of oxygen reaching her brain as she tried to scream in his ear because he was ignoring her. Naturally, she had not passed away and was taken to the hospital right away. She had yet to learn her lesson, though, and this incident further strengthened her belief that Naruto was a monster who needed to perish. However, Ino began to try to take things more seriously, beginning with her profession as a ninja. She also wished to at least try to be his buddy and make amends, whether Naruto realized it or not. But because she was afraid of the girls who were normally around him, she wasn't sure how to approach him without inadvertently intruding on their personal space. After finishing his test, Naruto carried it to the front of the room and put his test paper on the desk in front of his girlfriends, face down, while grinning at them. He went back to his seat, grinned to himself, and hummed a song to himself. He looked around the room and was happy to see that Tsubaki and Yuno had completed and submitted their tests. He wasn't shocked that they had finished so early because they were both smarter than he was. Since Minin and Anko had learned to keep the three of them apart so they couldn't cheat on each other or chat to each other during lectures and the like, Tsubaki and Yuno were currently across the room from him. Yuno and Tsubaki had to be kept apart from their beloved Naruto-kun since they frequently spent more time concentrating on Naruto than on their studies. Anko let Minin go through everything and evaluate the papers when the test was ended a time later. She then led their students back to the academy training area. The snake mistress decided to start them on spars and gave them instructions to begin their stretches before glancing around at each student. Sakura and Kiba need to be brought down a level. I believe it's time for a change of pace. We may do anything we want to beat them into shape, according to Hokage-sama, so this should be enjoyable. Anko called out two names with a nasty smile when the students were ready. Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Haruno. Get your butts in the ring. Wait, what? But it's usually boys versus boys and girls versus girls. I don't want to fight some guy, Sakura said, blinking. How's that sound, girly? Anko asked, with a hint of sadistic glee in her eyes. Too bad, girly. Nene-chan and I make the rules here, and right now, I'm saying there's no rule saying I have to keep it to same-sex pairings. Now get in the ring, or else I'll consider your refusal an immediate forfeit. And you'll have to say out loud, Naruto-sama is better than Sasuke could ever be. With a frown, the pinkhead rushed into the arena and positioned herself across from Naruto. I refuse to say something like that, especially when it's untrue. I'll show you and his girlfriends just how weak and pathetic he really is. Anko gestured for them to start, saying, big words from such a puny little girl. Now, have fun you two, go wild. Sakura made the decision to launch the attack in an attempt to surprise Naruto. She only wanted to win the spar as quickly as possible. But when she punched him in the face, he deflected the blow and gave her a pitiful scowl. He slipped behind the pinkette, grabbed her hair firmly, and pulled forcefully, making her head to bounce back. Your punch is weak, Sakura. And Sakura gave him a fierce look as she tried to break free of Naruto's grip, but he slapped her across the forehead and ordered her to stop. Sakura, if I can disable you like this, you might want to consider cutting your hair and making it shorter. If it helps any, I think you'd probably look pretty good with shorter hair. As it stands, your long hair is a weakness that can and will be exploited by enemy shinobi. You're cute too, so you might end up being subjected to things no girl should have to go through. Hell, nobody period deserves what sick people like that would do to you. As she heard Naruto's remarks, the pinkette ceased to struggle. She blushed slightly as he gave her a praise. It was pleasant for Naruto to give her such a compliment, even if she had always hoped Sasuke would say something good to her. Sakura stood there looking at him for a time after he let her go, unsure of what to say or do. She leaned in and kissed his cheek after a moment. Thank you, Naruto. I forfeit, Anko-sensei. Wise decision. Might want to be careful though, certain girls might think you're encroaching upon their territory, Anko replied with a simple chuckle. Sakura glanced from Anko to Yuno and Tsubaki, blushing slightly. The hateful glances they were giving her didn't make her fear them any less. Still, she grinned and yelled, Naruto-sama is better than Sasuke in every way. He's kinder, smarter, stronger, and so much cuter. She was pointing back at Naruto. Naruto reddened slightly, but before he could respond, Tsubaki and Yuno snarled fiercely, and the latter went on to exclaim, You'd better not think of making a move on our Naru-kun. I had no plans to. I'm just saying he's cute, Sakura remarked, shaking her head. Anko laughed and then glanced at her sister brides-to-be. Reluctantly, they nodded in understanding because the glance indicated, don't kill her. She then summoned Kiba and Yuno, concluding that Kiba needed to be pulled down a few pegs and that defeating a girl would be a great way to accomplish it. She hoped it would, however. Even though they were both only 10 at the time, Kiba gave Yuno a grateful look as he stood across from her. I don't see what you girls see in that loser. If you want to get with anyone, get with a real alpha like me. Not some weak lil Omega. Then again, he wouldn't even qualify as that. Naruto's not even a blip on the radar. Now be a good girl and beg me to take you as my future bride. I treat you real well. Yuno narrowed her eyes in danger and said, I'm going to enjoy breaking you, Kiba Inuzuka. You were told to refer to him as Naruto-sama, but you obviously didn't learn your lesson. Now it's my turn to beat some sense into you. Then again, even after I win, you'll probably stay the same arrogant jerk you always have been. Oh well. Kiba laughed and replied, I'll never refer to someone like that as Sama. I'm the alpha dog here, not some punk like him. I'll make you submit to me here and now. You'll be begging me to become my bride once I'm through with you. As Anko declared the contest to begin, Yuno waited calmly. When she did, the girl with the pink hair started to approach the haughty Inuzuka slowly. Kiba just stood there grinning at her with assurance the whole time. You should have gone on the attack while you had the chance. Showboating has cost you a potential victory. Yuno stated with a charming smile as she arrived at him, and then her hand shot up, putting 2 fingers in his nostrils. Before throwing him behind her, she repeatedly slammed her fist into his face while pulling his head forward. Yuno spun around and ran to him, then sprang into the air. Kiba rolled aside as she struck him with an axe kick, but his eyes widened in fear as the pinkette's blow shattered the earth, creating a tiny hole. She shrugged her shoulders and replied, Phooey, I missed. She turned back to Kiba and smiled sweetly at him before vanishing and resurfacing behind him, choking him with her arm over his neck. From now on, you call all of us by the Sama suffix, or I'll break you. Do you understand me, little boy? She said with an ugly smile as he gasped for air. Kiba repeatedly tapped on her arm while beggingly staring into her eyes. Help. I asked you a question, Kiba. If you don't want to pass out, or worse, you'd better give me the right answer. And judging on how your head is turning an interesting color, I suggest you say it quickly. Yuno said with an overbearing grin on her eyes. When she asked the alpha man to say something she wanted to hear, he refused. She then let him fall to the ground after strangling him until he was asleep. She kicked Kiba hard in the chest and sending him flying into several of the other lads in the class without missing a beat. Before Yuno sat down next to her beloved, she murmured, Fuck you, Kiba. Minin approached the class and stated, Looks like we're going to need to talk to Sume about her son. He needs to learn humility and fast. If he pulls this kind of crap out there in the big, wide world, he'll get himself or others killed. Anko took a breath and replied, I'm in agreement with you there. It might be a good idea to get Hokage-sama involved in this as well. Kiba needs to learn his lesson, and it's obvious he's not learning it here at school. Minin took a minute to reflect while glancing at the other students. She was intrigued by the determined expression on the girl's face when she laid eyes on Ino. She said, "Tsubaki and Ino, get in the ring." Minin declared the match to begin once the two of them had stepped into the ring. Strangely enough, they were just looking at one another, waiting for the other to approach. This is odd, thought the mad bomber of Konoha, frowning slightly as he gazed into Ino's eyes. Ordinarily, she would have simply barged in and initiated a brawl. But not right now. She seemed to be making an effort to better herself. How fascinating. Anko turned to watch Sakura for a time while Minin watched the match. She continued to blush while glancing at Naruto. She frowned in worry since she didn't like the thought of Naruto having a fangirl like this. Nevertheless, for some foolish reason, she thought it was preferable than her attempting to harm him. But even though she knew there was no need to feel that way, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous at the same time. Tsubaki returned to the ring, calmly glancing at Ino before slowly making her way closer. The red-eyed girl ducked and pushed her hand forward toward Ino's stomach when Ino eventually raced forward and threw it at her face. Tsubaki was caught off guard when her opponent parried her strike, and Ino then delivered a forceful snap kick that got her in the side. Tsubaki concentrated her sight on Ino and then launched another assault, wincing as she staggered to the ring's edge. The red-eyed girl used a feint to get past Ino's defense and delivered a forceful blow to her side. Unfortunately, Tsubaki was thrown to the ground as Ino rolled with the momentum and smacked the back of her fist into her face. The blonde then retreated a few paces and reverted to a defensive stance. "How the hell do you get so strong so suddenly? It doesn't make sense. You were a weak Sasuke fangirl for a few years now. What the hell's changed?" Tsubaki said, slowly getting to her feet and giving the ex-fangirl a vile gaze. Ino only looked at Naruto for a moment before turning back to Tsubaki. "I saw the truth and decided to better myself. I refuse to remain a weak little fangirl. From now on, I train hard to become the strongest kunoichi in the world. I don't care how long it takes or if my dream seems impossible. One way or another, I'll become the strongest and earn some respect not just from my peers, but my parents as well. I let them down and I hate that feeling. I want them to be proud of me. So I'm going to train harder than anyone can imagine until nobody can beat me." Tsubaki gave the blonde a narrowed look. She was not pleased with the fleeting glance she gave Naruto. "What are you planning, Ino? If you think you can hurt Naruto-kun, just know we won't let you." The girl with the blue eyes blinked a few times, perplexed. After a while, she chuckled and replied, "You misunderstand. I have no intention of hurting Naruto. Rather, I want to earn his respect too. I want to try and be friends and make amends for my past treatment of him. That's all." "Don't tell me you're planning to kiss him too?" Tsubaki said with a sigh. Ino shook her head and giggled. Her smirk was cheeky as she joked, "Not right now, no, maybe later." With a sigh, the girl with black hair palmed her face. What is it with girls and Naruto-kun? I'm going to make this clear to you and Sakura both. Naruto-kun is ours. I don't trust either of you with him. So don't go getting any funny ideas, either of you." Ino just laughed and replied, "I'll make you a deal then. If you can beat me in this spar, I won't flirt with him, I won't try to win him over, and I'll stay away if you want me to. Boot, if I win, and I will, not only will I get to be his friend, but I'll be his first bride." Naruto's cheeks instantly flushed brightly, and his eyes widened. At the same moment, the girls who were in love with him squinted at the blonde. Tsubaki said fiercely, "Why the hell would I ever agree to something like that? If I somehow lose, then you'd steal everything from us. He's our Naruto-kun." The brunette just sighed and replied, "Sounds to me like someone's afraid of losing. Tell you what, let's sweeten the deal a bit. If you win, I'll be Naruto's slave forever. I'll do whatever he wants me to. Absolutely anything." Her words and delivery simply made Naruto redden even more. "No, you can't just make up some deal like that. Naruto-kun," Tsubaki snarled, narrowing her eyes. Ino let out a breath and replied, "Well, if you're that afraid of losing to me, you might as well forfeit now. Save yourself the humiliation." "Fine. I'll accept your deal, and when I beat you, you'll have to start calling him Naruto-sama. You'd better be a good slave, or else you'll regret making such a deal." Tsubaki snarled. Her fists curled at her sides, before Naruto's girlfriends could stop her. With a wicked smile, the blonde remarked, "I knew you'd see things my way. Tsubaki better win this. I want to be your first bride. I don't want this bitch taking that from me." Yuno clenched her fists violently and whispered to Naruto. Naruto sighed and replied, "I'm sorry Yuno-chan, But I don't think Tsubaki-chan's going to win this one. Su-chan's letting her anger and frustration get to her, whereas Ino is calm and composed. It doesn't look good. Tears were starting to form in Yuno's eyes. But I want to be your first everything. This isn't fair. He gave Yuno a tight hug, a pleasant smile, and a kiss on the forehead. It'll be okay. Even if you lose out on that particular first, we can. Well, there's other firsts you can have. Let's put it that way. When the Pinkette understood what he was trying to say, she flushed. Oh, I see. Oh, okay, Naruto-kun. If you say so. Tsubaki swung a blow at Ino's face back in the ring, but Ino deflected it and stopped Tsubaki's momentum. The black-haired girl was startled as the blonde abruptly smacked Tsubaki with an uppercut. She leapt to her feet and used both legs to kick Tsubaki in the chest, sending her reeling back. Ino hurried up and delivered a series of punches to Tsubaki's stomach and chest before her opponent could gather herself. Reluctantly, Anko declared Ino the winner of the spar after her opponent fell to the ground and was unable to stand up. Tears were running down Tsubaki's face. This bitch was going to kidnap her Naruto for the first time after she had failed. At the very least, she would be the first bride. It was unclear to her which was worst. After assisting Tsubaki to stand, Ino approached Naruto, knelt down, and planted a kiss on his lips. Then, with a sly smile, she settled into his lap. I hope you don't mind me joining this polyamorous relationship of yours? Putting his arms around Ino's waist, he drew her back against him and muttered, just because you've claimed the position of first bride doesn't mean you can take my other firsts away from them, especially Yuno-chan. Okay. Naruto sighed and said, I don't think I'm the one you should be worried about. My girlfriends aren't too happy with you right now, but you did win fair and square. With a simple smirk, Ino remarked, Gotcha, Naruto-kun. I'm looking forward to a beautiful relationship with you. Taking a deep breath, the blonde with the spiky hair remarked, Welcome to the family, Ino-chan. After a year, Naruto and his girlfriends, including Ino, had undoubtedly had an exciting time. For the time being, they had decided against taking Ino to see Deus Ex Machina, though they had thought about it. They were still reluctant to present her to Deus, even though they trusted her, especially after all this time. Sakura had been a fascinating development as well. She had the guts to approach Naruto as a friend, even expressing regret for everything she had said and done to him. She asked Naruto whether he felt she looked nice after getting her hair cut short as well. The sweet blonde told her, of course, that she looked more than just pretty, she looked stunning. She glomped him to the ground and gave him a tight hug after squealing joyfully. Everyone could see that she had fallen hard for the blonde, but once more, they were reluctant to embrace her as one of their own. And they would never take her to meet Deus until they were ready. Kiba hadn't learned his blasted lesson and still thought of himself as a superior alpha male, just as they had anticipated. He maintained that attitude regardless of how many times he was defeated in a spar by Naruto or one of his girlfriends. He simply refused to listen to Tsume's attempts to pull him out of it. Finally, they were thinking of bringing in Tsunade and letting her scare the living daylights out of him. Fortunately, Shizune had changed his mind and was prepared to meet Deus Ex Machina. Shizune and Taunton were escorted by Tsunade to meet the powerful deity. The three of them were now in front of the powerful deity. The black-haired medic Nin dropped Taunton to the ground in shock at what she was witnessing. Shizune responded, Be big. Very, very big. With a laugh, Deus gave her the identical present he had given Tsunade and the others. In order to spare them from having to see the death of their beloved pet one day, he then put a finger on Taunton and gave her the presents as well. Then he made a finger gesture for someone to emerge from hiding. Tsunade's and Shizune's eyes opened when they saw who it was. Tsunade, unsure of what to believe at the moment, asked, Kei Kushina. But how? You were dead. I could have sworn you were dead. The brunette looked sad and replied, The Kushina of this world is, indeed, dead. I am different. I am from another world, or rather another dimension, parallel to this one. In that dimension, I never married Minato. I never had children. I never died, but I always felt like a part of me was missing. When I met Deus-sama, he opened my eyes in a way and asked me to help him look after Naruto-kun in this world. When I first laid eyes on Naruto, my heart hurt. He's the son I never had. He's the family I wanted so desperately. But, at the same time, Deus has suggested that I be something more to him when the time comes. Tsunade sighed and replied, That's all well and good, but if you were brought to this world to be with him, then where the hell have you been? You haven't taken an active role in his life yet at all. Deus took a breath and replied, That would be my fault. I've had Kushina looking into things for me, as well as dealing with threats to Naruto-kun's safety. She recently completed a task I set for her to do, so I insisted that now was the time to at least meet you, Tsunade. Kushina looked at him and said, Obito Uchiha. He's the one responsible for unleashing the Kyuubi on the night of Naruto-kun's birth. I killed him so he could never harm anyone ever again. However, the damage has been done and now the leader of the Akatsuki plans to collect the 9 Biju in the hopes of using their power to bring peace through violence. It doesn't help that Danzo made an enemy of Nagato and Konan. Danzo was really good at making enemies for Konohagakure. If he wasn't already dead, I'd have killed that old bastard myself. Shizune looked at him and said, can we do something about them? Like let them know that Danzo is dead and we want to make peace with them? Anything at all? Deus nodded his head and said, sadly, it would not be that easy. Pain's mind has been clouded with hate for years now. Konan has tried to speak with him in private, to ease his mind and put his heart at ease. Alas, she has not had any luck. She's considering leaving the Akatsuki and warning someone so the people of the elemental nations can prepare for the threat that the Akatsuki poses. I have already sent Muru to collect both her and Itachi. Those two will make wonderful guardians for Naruto-kun. After a moment of contemplation, Tsunade turned to face Kushina. Now that you're free to do as you'd like, will you reveal yourself to Naruto-kun? I'm sure he would love to meet you. Even if you aren't his mother, he would still appreciate your friendship. In response, Kushina grinned and nodded. Yes. I plan to introduce myself to him real soon. For now, we need to deal with Konan and Itachi. The blonde woman gave a sympathetic nod. Muru-chan reporting in Deus-sama. 1 Konan and 1 Itachi Uchiha. Here for your amusement. Vroom vroom. The immortal said, saluting Deus when Muru showed up with both Konan and Itachi. Deus laughed at Muru's actions and then turned to face Itachi and Konan, who were now staring up at him with wide eyes. Sit, eat some popcorn. We have much to discuss, Konan and Itachi. But first, allow me to show you something. He will be the topic of our conversation. Itachi and the blue-haired woman watched as a big screen materialized in front of them. After that, they sat down, munched on some delicious popcorn, and watched as the life of Naruto Uzumaki unfolded in front of them. Why show us all of this? Konan said, looking up at Deus when it was finally over. Before he said, you've brought us here because you want us to look after him, didn't you? Itachi scowled thoughtfully. Deus shook his head in agreement and grinned. You always were a bright one, Itachi Uchiha. If I were to restore your eyesight and bestow a gift upon you that would negate that nasty side effect of your Mangekyo Sharingan, would you play the role of Naruto-kun's guardian? Uchiha, who had raven hair, sadly shook his head. I'm afraid I can't. I'm sick. I have a disease that is slowly killing me. I'm not sure how much time I have left. The god gave a sympathetic nod. I see. Then, if I were to purge this disease, cure your eyesight, and bestow upon you the power I have promised, will you be his guardian? Or do you still want to insist that you deserve to die for killing your clan of traitors? Your little brother turned into a psychopath and has been locked away for his crimes. He cannot avenge your clan. In truth, you are the last true Uchiha and it will remain that way until you either die or sire an heir. What will you choose to do, Itachi Uchiha? I want my son to be safe, and you too can make it happen. What you did was not a crime. You are a good man who was dealt a bad hand in life. That is not your fault. So please, Itachi, support my son, Kushina said before Itachi could finish speaking. Itachi gazed into Kushina's eyes, and his eyes grew wide. Kushina-sama? You're alive? The redhead asked Itachi, laughing quietly as she described the situation. She grinned when, a bit later, he nodded in understanding. After turning back to face Deus, Itachi declared, I will do it. From now on, I serve you and Naruto, Deus-sama. As he healed Itachi of his illness, restored his sight, and bestowed his talents, Deus remarked, good. Then he turned to Konan and asked, and what of you, Konan? Naruto-kun is an Uzumaki, just like Nagato. Perhaps young Naruto-kun can get through to him. Perhaps not. What really matters to me is that you take care of Naruto-kun and protect him from any and all threats, even your old group. Should you refuse, I'll send you back to Omegakure. However, you should be warned that Nagato will kill you sooner or later. Konan's expression was one of horror at the prospect. Why, you can't know that for sure. I can talk to him. I can change his mind. I have foreseen it, Konan. You can calm him for a time and change his mind only so often before he eventually kills you for questioning him the way you have been. He may be too far gone for anyone to truly save him. If you want to make amends for his crimes, serve his family. Serve Naruto-kun and try to make things right. You will eventually have your chance to change Nagato for the better. Deus replied with a grin. The woman with the amber eyes scowled for a while before nodding. Very well. I will serve this Naruto Uzumaki. What exactly would our duties to him entail? Deus just grinned and said, simply be there for him. Protect him. Love him. I don't how, just make sure to keep him happy. And Tsunade, I expect you to ensure that they are allowed to leave the village on missions with Naruto when the time comes. They serve him now, after all, and I do believe keeping Naruto-kun safe is our top priority. Tsunade sighed and replied, I can think of some way to make that happen. For now, I would like to introduce these three to Naruto-kun. If that is all, Deus-sama? The rather big group vanished back to Konoha, and the deity nodded. And when are you going to reveal your true form to Naruto-kun and his, harem? Deus said, looking down at Muru after they had left. Muru just sighed and replied, when I feel like it. Naru's still got a bit of growing he needs to do before I even consider it. Besides, this form's kind of fun. It helps that people always underestimate me when I look like this. Deus answered, true enough. And then turned to face his buddy. Could you perhaps pop more popcorn? That is quite the delectable treat. Muru only laughed as she left to fulfill her master's orders. Naru, I'm excited to play with you. Naruto at the time, Naruto, who is now 11 years old, was in his backyard doing katas for Anko's taijutsu style. At the moment, Ino Yamanaka, his girlfriend, was keeping an eye on him in order to give him advice or point out his mistakes. She appeared ecstatic to be able to witness him without his shirt at this moment. She couldn't resist giggling occasionally to herself in a little perverse way as the sweat trickled down his body. Hey, she was just a little kid starting a strange phase of her life. Let her rest. After a little while, Naruto stopped and wiped himself off with a towel before sitting down next to Ino. So how'd I do this time, Ino-chan? I think you're doing really well, Naru-kun, the blonde girl stated with a smile, adding, you're definitely improving more and more the more you practice. Then Naruto kissed her on the lips and murmured, thanks Ino-chan. It's almost time for dinner now, huh? Ino bowed her head and grinned. Yes, it is. I still wish you'd let me move in with you. Then again, I suppose I understand why I can't just yet. I will have my way someday though, I guarantee it. With a quiet giggle, Naruto got up and grasped her hand. He kissed her cheek as they walked inside and he left to take a shower. She left in the interim to begin preparing the family's supper. She had just started cooking when she heard someone coming into the pretty huge house, or was it a mansion? She was genuinely uncertain. In any case, she completed the preparations before turning to look at the person who had come inside. The fifth Hokage, her aide, and 3 other individuals were standing there. Itachi, you're Sasuke's older brother, are you here to hurt Naruto-kun? If you are, I won't go easy on you, she exclaimed, referring to the other 2 as entirely unfamiliar. Itachi took a breath and replied, I guess I should have expected a reaction like that. Why don't we help you in the kitchen while we wait for Naruto-kun? I'm sure he'll have a lot of questions. Not sure if she could trust her own voice at the moment, Ino just nodded. Instead, she ushered Konan and Itachi into the kitchen to assist her in the cooking. After a while, Naruto entered the room and remarked, this is going to be a long conversation, isn't it? After noticing the Hokage and her guests. Tsunade smiled and replied, it will be. First Naruto, I would like to introduce Itachi Uchiha and Konan to you. From this day forth, these 2 are your guardians. They'll be your bodyguards, your friends, your family, whatever you require of them. He just gave Itachi a friendly, understanding nod after staring at him for a moment. After that, he had to acknowledge that Konan was stunning, but she also appeared to be a little depressed. Are you stoic? He couldn't quite put it into words. Nevertheless, he also gave her a welcoming nod. Then his gaze shifted to the redhead. And you are? I assume you already know who I am. After giving a nod, Kushina made the decision to speak up. Naruto-kun, my name is Kushina. Kushina Uzumaki. In a way, I'm your mother. After giving her a narrowed look, Naruto looked at Tsunade. Though he wasn't sure how he felt on the inside, he calmly stated, you were right. We have a lot to talk about. This had better be good. But one thing was certain. Whoever was involved would pay a heavy price if he didn't like what he was hearing.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.